some of the casters in LCS I think are insane. I think Captain Flowers is insane. I think Jad is really analytical. I think Jad is one of the smartest and like
Wait a minute,
most
you're counting
articulate.
Jad? Hasn't he only done about 4 games this year? So what the fuck are you counting him for? You just came back.
Okay, well, I mean, if we exclude Jad, then it becomes.
If you have to go to Jad second, then they're in fucking trouble, mate. Like, NA's not that bad. They've got.
I just really love Jad. I actually do love Jad.
They've got Jad. I think Skara still technically lives in the region. I Will Dominate. Like, was born there or something. Like, you're fucking far down the barrel.
Okay, I think Dash is an excellent host. I think Mark, Z, and Dash like really found their footing together.
Still got Bjergsen, the best mid laner ever. Who else, Loco? Okay, this is going to be episode 87 of Listen Loco. You're probably all wondering, like, where are you? What the fuck? Like, Loco said it'd be on at 7. You have to understand, guys. Like, I was the one that was late, but I wasn't actually late. You know, if you go and see a big rock band like U2 or the Rolling Stones or something, they don't just come on stage at exactly the time they say the show starts, do they? Like, they come on, you know, I was in my room just reading a book for 10 minutes, smoking a cigarette. Like, I had to make you guys wait. You know, you have to get your appetite sweat. You have to build up a bit of expectation, you know. But we're here now. We're here finally. Now, interestingly, I let Loco book one of the guests for this week, right? And I saw he was like, he tagged some in and he was like, oh, I've got this guy's coming on the show. And I saw the name, it's like Christy. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Usual sort of name that might actually be one of Loco's like surprise last minute guests. Turns out it's actually a boy. It's not actually one of Loco's people that he hosts after the stream, who, if you notice, 99% of the time aren't even fucking playing games. They're just like having a chat, like, so anyway, yeah, my dog just came back from the vet and it needs another shot. Like, and I'm like, I wonder why they've got 200 followers, Loco. I wonder what this fucking host's going to do. The best part is, by the way, when he does the host after these streams, he literally has to beg his fans, like, please don't be assholes to them, because they all just go into the person's stream and say, like, like, Loco was in love with you. I'm like, even his own fans are still assholes. Like, why did they do that, Loco?
I have no fucking idea. I have no fucking idea. Like, I'll literally host friends, like, just literally fucking platonic friends that I know in person that I want to help. And then they're like, Loco's in love with you. Would you date Loco? Loco's crying. I actually had one of my friends. I had one of my friends call me, like, literally after I hosted her. She's like, all your fans are saying you're crying. Are you okay? I'm like, oh my fucking God, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the problem with that is that just means they haven't been on the internet long enough that they actually believe anyone says some shit like that. But anyway, let's get into it, right? So, obviously, the weird part about doing shows at this point in time is there is no League of Legends to actually watch or talk about, unless you're watching EU Masters, by the way. Technically, you can, if you're in Europe, follow some League of Legends. But obviously, we're going to talk with Ender since he's coming from LEC in the European region. We're mainly going to talk about Europe. So I thought the way we would do it was this. When we had the episode with Wanda, it was actually on the first day of the Gauntlets. We didn't discuss the Gauntlet at all. And in fact, as a result, we didn't particularly discuss those teams, because since it was Wanda, we just discussed Fnatic and G2 and mainly went on like the higher tier stuff. So we can talk about any of the Gauntlet teams. We can talk about Europe going to Worlds. There's still a lot of topics we can get into. So Ender, I've got a question for you on this first, which is, okay, since you only joined the LEC fairly recently, like, were you someone who used to watch Europe a lot before then?
Yeah, so I was... I joined last summer, but before then I watched mainly LCS, both versions of LCS, basically. I definitely watched more NA LCS because like the time was just better. But I did watch my fair share at ULCS.
Because I noticed actually that in this particular split of this year, people were getting really depressed about the state of Europe, even though bizarrely, most people say Europe has the best team in the world in G2, but because most people looked at Europe and they were like, right, there's G2 and Fnatic, and then the problem is it was supposed to just be Splice all along, right? Splice were the ones contending with Fnatic, and then they obviously had that dip towards the playoffs when they got beaten by Rogue. Then going into the Gauntlet, a lot of people didn't even know, is it going to be them? Some people thought maybe Rogue makes an like inspired run, or maybe Schalke does it after all. Obviously, they've got a decent squad. But luckily, since Splice in the end has made the last spot, I feel like it's actually saved this narrative. Because I know a lot of people were saying, like, whoever the third team from Europe is going to fucking suck. Because listen, you can say all you like about Schalke and Rogue, like, they probably wouldn't do very well at Worlds. Like, that just feels unreasonable to expect. So what did you think of the strength of Europe for this split?
So basically, like, I shared a pretty similar opinion to a lot of people, which was there was a pretty big gap between G2 Fnatic and the rest. But for the majority of the regular season, it didn't actually look that way. Splice actually performed very, very well. And then even in week 9, they contested Fnatic super, super well in that 45-minute game. But it always felt like the way they were winning was very different to the other teams, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you consider G2 Fnatic, they looked so dominant in their wins because they get early advantages, they have very good mid games, and they close on you very, very quickly, whereas that was never the Splice style. So even though win wise they always looked like they were up like neck and neck with Fnatic, and we talked a lot about them trying to challenge for the second spot going into to Worlds over Fnatic, it always felt like because of the way they were playing, they were never quite as dominant. And I think that a lot of that came down to the mid-game issues we talked about all the time. I actually thought there's a really good article by Kelsey Moser recently talking about how they set up vision in the mid game and how that actually slows them down. The other issue is like the individual players getting caught a lot of the time, but it was basically this mid game period that made all their games drag out. So even though like they were clearly the third best team in the region, it never felt like they were on quite that same level of G2.
Sure. I'll even say as well, that's actually one of the reasons why, even though, because as you said, if you look at the record in the split, they're supposed to clearly be the third best team. As you said, they were even contending Fnatic maybe to get a top 2 seed. I noticed that a lot of people put a lot of weight on that when it came into the playoffs. And that's why I heard a lot of people were picking Splice 3-0. They were saying they were going to 3-0 that one. And even though from what I remember, I think actually Veteran didn't pick Rogue to win. He did actually say he thought they had loads of chances to win game for exactly the reason you're saying, which is that there would be moments in the mid game where you could potentially exploit them. Actually, you could maybe get edges. And actually, if you looked at the other teams in the league, Rogue's one of the few teams that maybe could have done that. Actually, if you look at the personnel they had, like the players, because one of the things that I think is interesting about Splice that I want to get into is the way you set it up there is basically the way everyone's been talking about Splice. The problem is, because our expectation of them is, can they be as good as Fnatic and G2? All that happens, and the reason I'm setting it up this way is because I know that the Splice players and coaching staff actually get mad triggered by the way they get analysed at the moment. Their problem is they feel like all we do is talk about why they aren't Fnatic and G2, which is what we basically just did. But to be fair, that's very relevant. The problem is, I guess the problem is it's a counterintuitive way to ask it. It goes like this. If they have all these flaws, and by the way, they do, I'm sorry, Splice players and coaches, it's not some conspiracy to say you're not as good as G2 and Fnatic. Like, you never smash games the way they do. You never just dominate opponents like they do. Like, it looks on the page way flashier when they beat someone than you do. So the question is this, Ender, what do they do well then? Because obviously they have still been able to have overall, if you look at the 2 splits now, some pretty good amount of wins. The win rate's very high. As you say, they even sometimes take the top teams close. So what does Splice do well?
So I think for me, I always look at Xerxes as probably like the standout player on this team, both in terms of like, I think as far as junglers go in Europe, like our 3 top junglers are Jankos, Broxa, and Xerxes. They happen to be the top 3 teams. Jungle's a broken role, whatever. But I think Xerxes he's incredibly efficient in how he paths in the jungle. He's a very different style jungler than the other 2, where he's less aggressive in the early game, but he's often on these level 6 junglers, and he's always super efficient in his pathing, so he's always the one ticking over to level 6 first. And a lot of times you would look at that kind of a player and be like, well, he's actually not getting like huge leads for his team in the early game. But at the same time, I know that Xerxes is super vocal on this team and like micromanaging his players throughout the game. So I think that a big strength of Splices is that in a controlled game, Xerxes shot calling shows up super, super well. And even though they aren't like popping off and like trying to bounce off the walls and kill you all the time, his shot calling is actually like very, very strong for this team. And it puts them into the position where they can take these team fights and end up winning them.
Because actually, that's one thing I find kind of interesting is whenever people talk about the Splice lineup, and they like, obviously most of the praise goes to Kobe and to Humanoid, like obvious reasons. If they win a 40-minute game, Kobe's going to get all the kills. He's an AD carry. Humanoid is the star mid laner and obviously has sick mechanics if you watch him play. So I think the interesting thing about Splice is a lot of people, because they view them as a flawed team, think like, oh, maybe if you just change some of the other players, they'll be better. It's like, maybe they would be, but they'd have to be a completely different style of team. Because as far as I can tell, Xerxes and Vizicachi seem to be the people who set the style of the team. Like, they seem to be the shot calling voices. They seem to be, their style basically dictates the game. Like, yeah, Xerxes isn't 24/7 ganking out of every lane. So you're not going to be that super acceleration team. Vizicachi isn't going to be a guy who's going to pick a super hard carry and then have to get all the resources go through top. So to some degree, they actually are the signposts that show you how Splice is going to play. Loco, what do you think of Splice as a team and potential going to World? Because as I said earlier, if it had been any other team, I wouldn't blame people from other regions from trying to shit talk a little bit like, oh, maybe the third seed will be rubbish. But this is the right third seed, right?
The big question I have for Splice and kind of to you guys is, do you guys think they would have beaten Rogue the second time? Because I think Rogue showed a lot of their flaws in terms of like what happens when people match them in terms of early aggression. What happens if they don't, like if their weak mid game gets punished and they never make it to that late game? Like what really happens? And like it really showed in the series. So like that's kind of my question. Like there are going to be teams at Worlds that have that same kind of early game and the same kind of ability to snowball. Is Splice going to be fine? Are they going to be able to shore up their mid game?
So at least for me, I think that so Splice is a weird question because you take their series versus Origin, and that was some of like the worst League of Legends I've ever seen. That best of 5 was absolutely horrific. And then they turned around the next day and it looked much better versus Schalke. So I want to sort of erase that series from my mind, anticipating like the ideal Worlds performance from Splice here. And I want to say, yes, they can fix a lot of their issues that sort of like arose towards the end, but I don't think they can like overhaul this team going into Worlds. I think that their style is going to be very suited. Like they can beat down pretty much teams that are weaker than them in terms of like individual talent and that sort of thing. I think so. Like getting through play-ins, super easy for this team. I don't think they'll run into any roadblocks there. But I think group stage is going to be really difficult because I think that teams that have very strong fundamentals should be able to exploit Splice's issues. And we've seen the Splice team go through a year and the Splice organization go through with a very similar style for years now. So to think that they somehow magically turn this around right before Worlds seems a little far-fetched to me.
Yeah, absolutely. As to reference the part about if they'd played Rogue again, I actually think they probably would have beaten Rogue if they played him a second time. Like a lot of what I actually think worked the first time around. Like, here's the thing. It's not that you have to fix the hole. You just have to be aware of where it is and how it can be exploited. So I think just foreknowledge of having played them already would have meant that the better team, which I do think is Splice, would have won the series. I don't think it ultimately would matter. Like I think they would probably still win the gauntlet anyway, as it were. Although technically, remember the final match is just the seeding match. You've already qualified for Worlds at that point. So they essentially did win the gauntlet in my world. Going to Worlds, I definitely agree with Ender. The problem with their team is, like, this is one of the rare teams where I'm willing to use that narrative of how the org treats the players, not just the players themselves. Because normally when people talk about like Fnatic from 3 years ago, I just think like it was a completely different team. Like, what's the point? But if you actually talk about this team, they have had exactly the same problems over most different iterations, even when they've taken a bunch of different players in and out of the team. So I actually feel as though that just suggests to me either the coaching staff can't find a way to get through to the players to change some of those issues, or those issues, probably more my theory, because my model of how I look at teams usually is I think you work inside out. You look at who the personnel is, then you design the system around based on what they are. You don't just decide like one day, like, no, my ideal style of League of Legends would be to play through the top and to play a very slow game. Oh, who do I have? And then in fact, you turn out you have the worst top laner. Like, I think that's like a flawed way to do it. So in my opinion, the style already is sort of like implied by who the players are. So I think you'd have to drastically overhaul the team probably to fix some of these issues at this point in time. And they've had a whole year. Like some of these issues have been there the whole year. And the problem with it is they're still a very good team in spite of those issues. So it's not as though like it's a fatal flaw. It's just that I can't see how when they go to a tournament like Worlds, they can get out of the group stage. Like I think there's a lot of teams could do them a lot of damage. Like especially just think of some of the Chinese teams. I feel like that would be the nightmare matchup for a team like Splice is that if they just get snowballed early by one of those Chinese teams, it'd be fucking terrible to watch. It'd be depressing.
So Splice
I mean, I totally agree, right?
No, go ahead.
I was say, stylistically, like if you take, like a slower team from NA or from Korea, like those regions just play much more like slow style League of Legends. They're much more like trying to like set up for the long haul, as opposed to like China that's just going to like skirmish and fight you. Like we've seen Splice play against those types of teams in Fnatic and G2, and that just does not go well for them.
Yeah.
There's even a world where, like, I'm not even exaggerating, even though they were my pick like months ago to win Worlds, there's a world in which they might even match up decently against someone like Griffin, because Griffin can sometimes be a bit passive in the mid game. You know, they don't always go fucking foot on the pedal all the whole time. So they might have some chances. That's the reason why I always say this, because I know but a lot of League fans, because they just watch their region. They just watch the names and it's TSM, it's CLG. Like, what you really need to do in tournaments is forget the ranking of the teams in the world. That's irrelevant to the match. The match is just about the matchup. It's like the strength of the players, the style matchup. So to me, if you want to look at an underdog like Splice, what you're really doing is asking who stylistically could they have a good game against, who would they have a bad game against. So even though like it sounds there like I dissed them, like any Chinese team would wreck them. It's like I've just said there, like they might actually be able to beat one of the best Korean teams in theory. So I think that's a more interesting way to look at when you look at Worlds anyway, because since we haven't seen the teams play, you've got to shadow box the different fundamental aspects to some degree. What about you, Loco? Do you actually think Splice will do well at Worlds?
So I think the weird thing is I actually really disagree regarding the Griffin point. So agree with Ender and agree with you regarding getting run over by Chinese teams and other really fast teams. Other teams that can play at like G2 and Fnatic speed in the early game will roll over Splice, and they're not going to get away with the shitty mid game. So that's a huge problem for them. They cannot beat really strong early game teams. And then on the flip side, their other strengths in team fighting and then like getting into late game and then doing things their way, like that's also not going to matter versus teams like SKT and teams like Team Liquid, and I would even say teams like Griffin that really excel at team fighting and that know how to set up team fights, and they aren't going to give you the kind of team fights you want, and they honestly won't even let the game really drag on. Maybe some of the Korean teams will, like SKT and Griffin, but I'm not really sure where Splice gets like a good matchup. You mentioned Griffin, but I think Griffin team fighting is going to be significantly better than Splice. And also, like, there are other...
Listen, I'm not picking them to win the game, Loco. My point is I'm making a point about the fact that even though Griffin is way above Splice in the world, like, stylistically, they could at least match up and make a good game. The difference is, if you tell me it's fucking Splice against, like, IG, I'll just say game over already. Like, that's what I'm going to go ahead and give that one to IG immediately.
Yeah, but the weird thing about Splice is, like, the team they face has to be, like, kind of meh in like early game, and then they're like good in terms of like late game and team fighting, but Splice is slightly better than them in team fighting and late game. I mean,
there's almost no one except like what LMS or something like that would even apply to.
Yeah, so I just think they're in a really weird spot going into Worlds, because like they don't do many things better than other teams that are like at top tier level.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that you brought up team fighting as well, because I think it's a bit of a misconception that just because Splice, you know, they take long games, they win games in the late game, that they are now good at team fighting, because that's usually what the game comes down to. I actually don't think they're like our best team fight team in Europe, or like...
They have some wonky team fights for sure, man.
Yeah. I think that this team actually really struggles when at like sort of like split second decision making, including within team fights. I think that like a very clear example was their week 9 game against Fnatic, where like they're winning a lot of those fights, and that game went really long. But then you have like individual players sort of like funneling into a Cassiopeia and just like killing themselves into that. And I think that their drafts actually prop up their late game team fighting a lot, because when you have Xerxes on a Silas, you know, in a lot of his games where he can actually like scale better than any other jungler in the game, and you have like Humanoid on Corki in the mid lane running a double marksman setup, it's always going to make team fighting like way easier for you. So I don't actually think it's their team fight mechanics that make them strong in the late game. I think it's actually just their drafts, and like they're really good individual players. I just think that they do struggle to like actually be on the same page in those late game moments.
What she said regarding matchups, Doran, like something like Clutch could beat SKT. It's actually weird because Clit is so good. Maybe let me do another one. Clutch could beat Griffin if Clutch goes off well enough in early game and like Huni gets activated, like Griffin is the greatest on top side. I actually think like that's a really good matchup for Clutch, like a third seed potentially beating like a top Korean team. But like for Splice, I can't imagine them beating any kind of top Korean team or top Chinese team.
Even though I'll give you props, you used the word stylistic there, which is all that's going to save your ass. The idea you're telling me in any universe, Clutch would beat SK Telecom is actually fucking ridiculous. But okay.
No, I
okay,
took the SKT one. I took the SKT one back because I thought of a Clit, but I think Griffin is like a more apt one of like Griffin. Clutch could beat them, but like for Splice, I can't say that for any kind of top team. Where I'm
problem
like,
with that is I feel like that's a stretch. Like remember, I'm not saying that Splice would beat Griffin. I'm just saying again, matchup wise, they'd have a better chance. if actually Clutch could beat Griff, I don't know if that's true though, because the problem is this, Local. Maybe if it was when they had Sword, but the guy they have now is the
Doran.
top lane is way better. That guy can actually carry games, mate. He plays fucking carry champ. So I think everything would have to go perfect for Clutch pretty much. And even then, I don't know if they could do it. Like, I feel like the big problem I have is this. Like, it's not an NA episode, so we won't go too deep on this, but like, I think NA is pretty weak at this. I think for me, NA is just Team Liquid, mate. I don't give a fuck about Cloud9, but whatever. We'll put that to one side. That's the NA episode. So what about this, Ender? What do you think of, you referenced it earlier, so let's just quickly touch on the topic. So Origin basically ended the year with a complete whimper. Like, they didn't make the playoffs, but they still had this shot where a lot of people didn't know, including the Origin people, that like mathematically they already were in that gauntlet. A lot of them thought that, like, you know, depending on the playoff seeding or something, because what they hadn't noticed was the teams that all could have gone past them were all playing each other. So only two could ever get the points that they needed to expand them. So they were always in the gauntlet. But you notice, like, it even looked like Origin players themselves had mentally checked out at the end of the season. And as you said, that match, on paper, you're supposed to look at it and go, well, you still went 5 games with a team that qualified. It's like, that doesn't even matter. This game was fucking terrible. So what would you say about Origin at the end there?
I mean, Origin just looked rough, man. Like, it's so hard to put a finger on it because I felt like in Spring Split, the thing we praised them for so often was they could sort of change how they wanted to play the game based on their opponents. They could throw a million different styles at you. Nuke Duck is huge champion pool, all this great stuff. And it was always, you know, what will they bring out? The preparation, it's all going to look so good for them. And they're also one of our slower teams, I would say. They're more like I don't want to say Splice style because it was a little bit different, but like they would push longer games, even though they did show that they could play more early game focus. And then the second they get back from Rift Rivals, all of a sudden, like Cold is trying to play Jarvan. They're trying to play like super early game comps. And then they also just take every single fight. Like, I could load up any VOD of an Origin game right now, and they could have like worse champions or be at a numbers disadvantage. But if a dragon is spawn, I don't care what it is. If it's an Ocean or Infernal,
they definitely prioritize them the most of anyone. Yeah,
they're gonna fight for it, and they're going to lose that fight over and over again. And it seemed like this team was, I don't know if they were trying to imitate like a G2 or a Fnatic and be like, oh, we have to play early game. Like, that's the meta now. We have to do this. Because it completely did not work for them. And everything that was good in spring, they just basically gave up on. And at the same time, I think they were also dealing with issues in terms of like gameplay synergy. In a way, mid lane and jungle were just not working together all of a sudden. We saw.
What do you think on that then? Because obviously, for people who don't know, even during the split, a lot of people criticized Cold's jungling, and they apparently agree because they took him out, and it was actually the Zanzara guy playing instead of Cold.
To be fair, they didn't take out Cold. Cold was ill, so they had to bring in an emergency substitution. It's hard to put a finger on whose fault it is exactly with these things, because what was very apparent.
Did it look different with the new jungler?
No, surprisingly. So quick aside on Zanzara, he's supposed to play like Ornn jungle and Nunu in the jungle, and all I wanted to do was to see Origin actually let him play some of these pocket picks, and they didn't let him do it. So it was kind of like, it wasn't a bad showing by him, but it was just meh. Which he's in a tough situation anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But anyways, going back to this mid lane jungle duo thing, was there were so many instances where Nuke Duck is over trading in mid lane to like try and fully push in the wave when it's on his opponent's side of the lane, and Cold just isn't there. And either Nuke Duck needs to be calling for Cold to be there, and that's not happening, or Cold just isn't aware that like the lane is pushing in. But Nuke Duck got punished so many times, when I think in spring he had one of like the fewest like isolated deaths in the league, because he never got ganked.
Nuke Duck was like the highest drop off, or the biggest drop off from spring to summer out of any player in EU. I was shocked.
I was too. It was really, really strange, because I think what we saw a lot was he was playing a lot of these. He played them in spring too, but he was playing a lot of these like melee champions like Aatrox or Aurelia primarily. And these champions run into a lot of issues trying to like fully push out the waves, right? And I keep bringing this up because it wasn't like Nuke Duck was like trolling and taking fights like randomly under the enemy tower. He's like actively trying to like bounce his wave so it can reset into a good position. And his jungler just isn't there, or like Mithy isn't roaming up to help him with these things. So it was like a larger team-wide issue that I really think they should have been able to identify, because it seemed like fairly obvious to me that this is, you see this happen once, maybe you don't say anything, it happens twice. Like, you've got to be like, hey, jungler needs to be here to help you fix this lane, or you just can't be doing this. You have to reset and like lose a lot of minions. But something has to change, and you can't just keep killing yourself on the wave every time.
To be fair, Nukedoc, considering he has always been considered a very good mid laner, has had a lot of issues with junglers over his whole career. Like in most of his teams, that's been where one of the main issues was. Like what people don't know, I should probably do an article on this someday, because what everyone forgets, right, is there was actually a team, this really happened, it was Rockat, where Nukedoc and Yankos played together. And it was terrible. They were like the 7th best team or something. And literally, it was a good example, actually. A bit like, it reminded me of like Misfits in the spring, because it wasn't that the players were terrible. You would watch them individually and still be like, Yankos is still a really good jungler, Nukelec's still a really good mid laner, but it's like they weren't on the same team. There was no connection between them. So then I think last year, when they had all the problems in the Schalke team, when they brought in fucking amazing last minute to get them to the finals or whatever, now this year, all these issues were called. Like, I don't put them all on Nukeduck, but it does seem to be a pattern. It makes me wonder what his communication or his relationship with his junglers like. Because one of the things that's a bit awkward about what happened to Origin is I actually had Nukeduck and Cold on an episode of my EU show that I do with Veteran, something like maybe like a week into them like starting to slump. And even on that show, like they were like jokingly doing all that shit of like better jungler wins and all the like banter that they always do between like junglers and laners. But the difference is there was actually sort of like there was a little bit behind it where you could tell it wasn't just banter, you know. It was sort of like a little bit true. Like you can, I don't think Nukeduck basically Fox were called jungle style. I don't think he buys into it. So just my theory, just an aside. Do you have any thoughts on Origin, Loco?
The mid lane thing that Ender mentioned, like the mid lane wave not crashing properly on melee champions and how to fix that, it's so important for the communication to be good, because you have to preemptively do it. Like all pro players at like top tier level know when their wave is going to get stuck. They know the size of the wave, they know where it's going to meet, and they know the enemy like champion
especially
can stop it there.
Mid laner, for fuck's sake. You've got to know that.
Yeah, so you communicate early to your jungler, he adjusts his pathing, he makes certain sacrifices, he makes sure he can be there, and then you're able to push it out all the way together. And it's actually a really good like point. If you're able to push it out all the way together, you can both reset, and you buy a huge amount of time because you had that huge wave like crashing into turret. But if you don't, then you're stuck where your wave is further away from you, like you're in a shitty spot. Like, so it's such a black and white situation, and the fact that they couldn't solve that is shocking to me, because it's one of like the very first things you learn whenever you play professionally. It's wave control.
I'll also even say as well, this is where, like, obviously I'm going to say part of this because I have my ongoing war with Refresh, but if you're one of these orgs that wants to brag about all the resources you give your players and the coaching staff and the backroom staff and the dietitian and the extra, can you fix some of the basics of the game? If you'd have flown fucking Kelsey Moser on an EasyJet flight for €59, she could have told you how to fucking fix that, you fucking idiots. Like, this is why it doesn't make sense to brag in the way that some of these orgs do. It's like, I almost get it, because to be fair, they only brag when the team does really well. Like when Astralis won the major, the first thing their owner did was fucking mention about how they had this great staff back in Copenhagen that had helped them, etc. I noticed with Origin, they don't say any of that shit anymore. Roughly about, let's say, like 4 or 5 months ago, they just stopped saying anything about all that stuff weirdly. I don't know what that is. Something about getting beaten the fastest possible time in the finals and then getting your shit dusted off so you don't even make the playoffs and then not even getting out the first round of the gauntlet. It's almost like a humbling experience.
In Origin's defense, though, Team Liquid did lose faster than them in their best of 5 versus G2.
Okay, fair enough.
Regarding the Kelsey Moser point, not that Kelsey doesn't have the knowledge, but I don't think Origin is in a situation where they're like, we don't know what we need to be fixing. Like sometimes like the issues are so obvious and you can't figure out things internally, so you suffer from like, we know what the issue is, but there's like player internal drama, or like the practice is shitty, or like everyone's checked out. I don't think like Origin coaching staff or Origin players are looking at their games.
Loco. Who's the coach of Origin?
Gilioto.
Right, and did he win any awards in the spring?
Coach of the split.
Oh, coach of the split, right. So what you're telling me is the coach of the split knows all the problems and is trying to fix them, but hasn't fixed them. What would that make him, Loco? Bad coach? Bad coach?
Sure, they would make him...
Bad coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bad coach. Just checking. But wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
But I'm just saying, I don't think it's a knowledge problem within Origin. Like, definitely not. Like, there's no way, like, they don't know, like, hey, this is a huge problem and we need to, like, start fixing it. Like, it's so simple. If your wave is getting stuck, preemptively call for the jungler to be there so you can 2v2, like, push the wave in.
Yeah, but you say that like no one here in this chat is saying they didn't know that. Like they're not literally sat around now still like, I just don't understand it. Like, why weren't the minions closer to me though? I want them closer. Like no one was sat around doing that, Loco. Like they weren't all having a fucking shower thoughts or something. Our point is basically like, even if they're aware of it, they haven't put as apparently any priority towards how to fix it. Like for example, in life, most people know what their flaws are, right? Like you think a fat person doesn't know, like, well, obviously, if I wait, too long in the day and then I give in to going and getting a takeaway, that's part of my problem. But that doesn't help them during all the time up until that moment. Like you have to deal with it at the right moment, don't you? So my problem is this: the reason why I joked you would fly Kelsey Moser in is because these are the things that she specializes in. Things like side laning, wave management. These are the things that, no joke, that would be the first thing she would talk to you about and that she would set up and make sure everyone had the protocols on, and then you'd move on to the other things. What I think personally happens, I'll give you a very quick side rant, is I think it's like that shit we saw with that TSM document with all the mistakes. I think what most teams do still in 2019 is a basic fucking VOD review that anyone in 2015 did, where you all sit around in a group drinking your fucking whatever sponsored drink that you have for your team, watching a game on a big screen, and then the coach goes, see, at 3:29, the jungler's got to be there like a bit quicker, because we have to match what he's doing there. And then everyone sits around and goes, yeah, but that doesn't help you fix it. Like to fix something, I always use this term, you have to practice with purpose. You have to specifically practice to make sure that thing gets addressed and is remembered, like in your That's why I don't know, you don't have it in League of Legends as no channel, but in CS, we use the term protocols to mean like when we go, so in Counter-Strike, say you're the terrorists and you're running into a bomb site, right? Protocols means things like who checks what angle, who throws what flash there, who does what in what order. Because if you have those protocols in place, that means that it will look like you're all robots. Like, holy shit, how did he flash there when he was looking here and he looked behind and they didn't get caught by this guy and they perfectly efficient. But the problem in League is a lot of players to this day, it's up to them whether they follow the certain protocol. Like a lot of the junglers have mad free reign as to what they do. The laner, it's up to him when he calls the person. Like I actually think lack of protocols is what fucks teams like this. Like if they had those things nailed, and the reason to bring it full circle why I brought it up in the Origin case is they have the least excuses of all. They don't have any rookies. These are all veteran players with the exception of this case with the guy who's ill and then this rookie had to come in. Everyone else is a veteran. Like even Patrick, you might not think he's a veteran. He's played like fucking 6 splits now, so he's played quite a while now. Like these are all players that have played a while. So to me, like I could accept that from Rogue. If it was Rogue fucking that up, fair enough. Some of your players have never been in the LEC. Like Origin, there's no excuse. Like you weren't like again. Think about what I did with Splice there, where it sounded like we were bagging on them because we were only saying what they aren't that G2 and Fnatic are. Origin's supposed to be in that conversation. Never mind fucking down here. Like why aren't they even a playoff team? Like this is the problem is people actually, I don't think, Loco, don't stress enough the flaws because it's like this. Normally, we talk about teams and we criticize players, right? We say, replace this player or this guy's not good enough. You didn't do that for Origin because no one does. If you look at Origin, to this day, I kind of agree. I look at their team and go like, I'd probably keep most of the players if I'm being honest. Like there's some pretty fucking good players in this lineup. Also, if you look at who you'd want to change them with, you're going to be gambling. All the upgrades are in Fnatic and G2. Like there's no super, except for, I mean, the big problem as well is, by the way, is if you look at the roles you'd want to replace, they don't even have anyone available. Like, they're not looking to get forgiven. They've got Patrick. They don't need him. So I feel as though the problem with for Origin for me is no one wants to call out the players. Okay, cool. You're giving the players a fucking pass. But no one wants to call out the coaches either. Well, who are we calling out then? What? Nobody. Is Riot just, excuse me, Riot? Can you make the game easier for Origin? Thanks. Like, what is this shit? Come on, Loco. Who are we going to criticize?
All right, let's start with... go ahead, Ender.
Real quickly, I do want to say that Origin did try changes behind the scenes. Around like week 6, I want to say they brought over Kays, who was the head analyst for both Fnatic when they went to World.
He's now the analyst of this team. Yeah,
and TL as well at MSI. So they did try things. I don't know if there just wasn't enough time for him to try and turn things around, or if
probably not. If you look at that time span.
Yeah, it's a really quick time span to like try and develop rapport with those players, and then also start changing things. But to me, it's like you got to look sooner than that, in my opinion, with that team. If you're waiting till the last 3 weeks of the split before you make that change, like I never thought Origin would do anything in the regional qualifier. Their season ended like in week 5, in my opinion. This team was just on a constant decline going downhill.
Sure. And by the way, just as an aside, for the sake of being complete, I don't actually think Kyoto's a bad coach. My point there is I'm poking fun at the fact that he was given coach of the split last split, and pointing out that if you are the coach of the split, I think people should be pretty critical when your team then fails based on things that appear to be coaching related. Like, that's just fair.
Speaking of coaching related and the protocol thing you mentioned, one thing people try to do in League is like goal-based practice, because it's so hard to practice in League if you're trying to practice a specific part, because one, like, people will mess with you in draft. Like, let's say you're trying to play Teemo Top, for example. You win one game with Teemo Top. You know what the enemy team is going to do? They're going to ban Teemo Top because they don't want to play against Teemo Top because it's something you're practicing. So regarding the protocol thing you mentioned, what teams try to do is they do like goal-based practice. So they'll go into a game like, hey, we want to really practice dragon control. So I'm sure if Origin is having problems with mid-jungle 2v2, like in terms of getting the wave pushed all the way in, like that's something like they're talking about before the game. Hey, like this is something we're really bad at and we want to put work into. Like, what are the steps for it? Like Nuke Duck, the moment you see your wave is getting screwed in future waves, call it preemptively and cold either tell Nuke Duck you can be there to fix his wave, or tell him you can't be there, like you're not going to be able to take the reset, and Nuke Duck start roaming, or just like recall right away. Like I'm sure like they do parts like that. Like League teams have gotten better and better about like getting more out of practice, just because like when you're scrimming a team like that you might potentially play in the future and they have their own goals on what they want out of practice, it is really hard to get like exactly what you want out and improve on those specific aspects.
Right, then for both of you then, what do you think Origin should do? What do you do for next year? Because like I say, to me, what makes this very different from a lot of other teams is it's one thing if, like I said about teams like Rogue, etc., where you're still trying to establish yourself as a good team. You know, you might keep some players, you might mix even some of the players that did well. If someone like Rogue really wanted to spend money, they might upgrade. They might get better players even than guys who actually looked good, like Finn. And maybe they should get a way better top laner. Who gives a fuck? The problem with Origin is the expectation is supposed to be to contend for the championship. I've no doubt that hasn't changed. Like, there's a reason fucking Refresh bought this org. It wasn't to be just a playoff team. So to me, either if you keep the players, you have to somehow believe that everything's going to get way better. Okay, that can be one perspective. Or it's got to be player changes, right? So which do you come down on the side of?
I really agree with you regarding like championship level team. Like there are certain orgs, like let's say Rogue. If Rogue doesn't win a championship next year and like they do decently, like they make playoffs, like no one's really getting fired. But for Origin, like they're hiring people like Deficio, like they're getting back people like Mitty, like they picked up Nuke Duck, they have Alfari in his prime. Like this is not a team if they're not contending for a championship next year. Like that's not something that's going to be okay for that org.
What do you think, Ender?
I think it's interesting too, because Origin's expectations were initially not to be a championship team. If you listen to like everything they said in Spring Split, this was supposed to be like the year-long process. So it felt like they reached the peak and got second place in Spring way faster than they expected themselves to, and then didn't really know where to go from there. So I'm actually thinking about what they actually will do. I don't know if they'll make changes. Maybe they just think they need more time with K's, and like off season they can do work. They have a great roster. Like maybe they think it's good enough and that they can like turn things around in Spring. It's still like hard to say you can beat G2, but I honestly don't know what changes you can make to beat G2 unless you're like poaching players from Fnatic. So it's like it's hard to do that in my mind. If anything, I think you would look at something to do with like the mid jungle. If like there is something going on there, replacing like one of those parts could be a change they could make. Other than that, though, it's like it's really hard to see where there would be upgrades. You know, you sort of hit on the head, Thorin, right? Or you said like if you're making a change, it's a coin flip change, and I don't think Origin is a coin flip organization. No. I think they want to go with known quantities, and that's what they have 5 players with right now.
I mean, the most obvious one is I don't think Zben's going to stay on TSM like at the rate like things are going. So like Zben to Origin would be like a really obvious move, no? If Zben leaves TSM, because Zben plus Mitty, also like Zben wanting to return to Europe, like where else is he going to go? Like he doesn't want to join a bottom team. The way he talked about Rogue, like just look at the names of players on this team. Like he still probably thinks really highly of himself. And one common pattern that I see is like European players that did well in Europe, that did badly in NA, when they go back to Europe, their value, at least to European teams, it doesn't seem like it's tanking.
No.
Like Yellowstar, Mitty, like it doesn't tank at all. Like people still think of them highly.
What you have to realize is the logic that Europeans use goes like this. Like, they themselves never thought NA was that good. They literally assume that NA is just worse and therefore the players got worse playing in a worse environment. And so what they think is, well, when you come back, yeah, you could be as good as you were last time you were in Europe. So they just mentally reset the filter to that and they'll give you a chance again. It's the same reason why I told everyone they were very naive if they thought no LEC teams were going to make Forgiven an offer. Like, you just don't understand the way players think if you think that way. Like, it doesn't matter that it was years ago he played. They just remember when they played him and how good he was and think, of course I want to play like that on my team. Like, it's not people. The problem is a fan's view is day to day. But actually, the way a lot of players don't think day to day in that sense, they actually think of like they have a static idea in their mind of who a player is: good, bad, really good, really bad, whatever. And you actually notice, by the way, the interesting part to me is that this can go the other way as well. Like, sometimes if you have the really bad debut into the LEC or you're on a bad team initially, it can take a while to actually get proper respect for how good you are. Like, people will be thinking you're a shit player just because they remember thinking you were shit, even though 2 years later you might be really fucking good now, actually. So. Like, I kind of think this does apply to the OG players. Like, I think OG players will all get a pass for this year. I don't think they'll get cut. The thing is, your suggestion is an interesting one, Loco, because the problem is, like, the day-to-day would tell you, fuck no, I'm replacing Patrick with Sven. In what universe? But the problem is, if I apply the theory I just told you to people like Sven, Nuke Dark, players who've played in Europe a long time, Cold, they're just going to think Sven's a sick player. Maybe that is an upgrade. Maybe that helps us.
I don't think it's going to fix all their problems. If they just do the Zben to Patrick, even if Zben returns to form and like Zben Midi becomes one of the best bot lanes in Europe again, like they're still going to have huge problems. For like the mid and jungle stuff, I'm not sure what the future for Cold is or even like the new rookie jungler. And for Nuke Duck, can you win a championship with Nuke Duck? Not to like hate on Nuke Duck, but like where is his level at? And with like Nemesis rising up, with Humanoid rising up, and then like Nuke Duck kind of having like a mess split, like whenever I thought about Nuke Duck, I've always thought like really high highs, some inconsistencies, and incredible champion pools. So I just don't know where it goes.
I mean, I think you can, right? You look at summer of last year, he got second place on Schalke, and then immediately changes teams, new players all around him, and gets second place again in a split like that. I don't think anyone's trying to tell you that Nuke Duck is better than Caps, but when we see Nuke Duck like in form, like it's definitely a player that with the right people around him can win a championship.
In form though, like how often is that? Like there are definitely times where it's not in form, and like consistency from mid lane, especially when your jungle is shaky, is something that's so important.
Here's my problem is like, I actually thought this already about the OG players. This was my original take when they put this lineup together. The reason I didn't pick them is like, oh, they're going to win LEC, or they're going to be, I thought like, right, you've got a whole bunch of good players. But the way I described it was, it's like you got like the second or third best player at each role. It's like you literally just went through the all LCS Pro and were like, right, G2's got most of the best players, but who else can we get here that's not in G2 or Fnatic, right? This guy's pretty good. He was pretty good. He used to be on the third. Like, and the problem with that, the reason I set that up as my premise is I don't actually think these 5 players fit that well together. Like, I think individually they're all good players, but I feel like some players should be in different teams. Like, in that sense, I actually think this isn't that great a lineup for Nuke Duck, actually. I think Nuke Duck probably should be in one of those teams where he has a super proactive jungler that just plays around mid all the time, or the solos. Like, that would be the obvious type of team to have. Like, I think he would do way better if he had, like, a self-made on his team or something. I think that's the kind of player Nuke Duck should probably play with, but that's not going to be Origin, it appears. So... And then on Origin's side of things, I wonder who they would actually like as a mid laner. I feel like in Origin, the type of mid laner they might like actually might be like fucking Abadagi or something. Like that might be the right type of player for them.
See, to me, I think they would rather pick up someone like Larson, right? They just go for something like super consistent, right? Like him. I think Abadagi
that's a pretty good pick, yeah.
He's much more of a coin flip in my eyes, at least. So while we have seen him be better, I think like if they were to invest,
I'm just thinking a bit more of a passive mid generally who doesn't necessarily need all the jungle attention.
Yeah,
all the time.
I think Larson's your guy then.
Okay,
for that.
That's not a bad shout. Yeah,
it's one thing that's like tragic with like Origin doing badly is like Alfari is like having like a really good split, and like he's been on fire, and it's just getting wasted completely. Like it wasn't as bad as like Solo on Echo Fox, where Solo started amazingly and the team went to shit, and then like Solo also broke down, and the rest of Echo Fox broke down. But like, holy hell, Alfari's like split is getting wasted so hard.
Yeah, the coolest thing about Alfari though is in spring, and actually for Alfari's entire career, he's always been praised as being a really strong weak side top laner. Like you would put zero resources in this guy, and he would like go even in lanes when he was playing, like tank versus range top lane, and he'd always be like very good on an island. And then this split, again, sort of in that same, they started changing how they drafted, and now Alfari's playing like range top laners in a lot of his games, and he looked absolutely incredible with just like a little bit of resources in draft and like with cold jungle pathing towards him a little bit. He like, I thought was one of our best top laners in the entire league on an 8th placed roster, which is not an easy thing to do.
Sure. No, especially that role particularly. There's a reason why always top lanes complain about the jungles, because they think it's so influential. No, I would agree. Basically, Alfari's entire rep was based on being like the new Odoamne. He's the guy that you give no resources, but he's always going to actually perform better than expected, and you're never going to have an issue then. It means you've got all these resources elsewhere in the team. So, yeah, he's been pretty good, I would say, overall.
Not to like diss on any top laner, but it's so weird to me, like Alfari and Cabochard aren't going to Worlds, and they were some of the best tops in Europe, along with like Wonder and Bwipo.
By the way, if you think about it, that really shows how League changed between spring and summer. Because at the end of spring, top lane ruled the world, mate. Like, you look at those fucking champion pools they had. The problem with banning out top lane champions in spring was, first of all, they were all fucking shared with mid lane, so they had an enormous pool. And it's more just pick your poison. Like, yeah, you banned Akali, so now this guy's picking Aatrox. Like, brilliant. Like, what did I get out of that? Did I really win that? Maybe. Yeah, it depends what this matchup is. Whereas you look in the summer, mate, the champion pool's got way smaller for top lane.
It's been about jungle
now. Way more the bruisers now. It's like it went way away from like. That's why like. It's all well and good talking about players, like their form goes up and down, but like, the game does change around them, you know?
And definitely, I think jungle became one of the most important roles, and top became one of the least important. Like, as you said, when champions like Sylas and Ryze and like Akali, Irelia were unnerfed and they were going top, like those champions just ruled the game. Yeah. Once those champion got a lead, your entire game had to be based around how can we stop this champion, and then the team with the lead on those incredible carries is how are we going to snowball this further. Right now, I feel like jungle matters so much more, and if your jungler is good enough, he just has control on the game. And there aren't like champions that are strong enough where if they get a slight lead, like if the jungler is good and the jungle also has a lead, he will just control it. It doesn't matter if solo lane is like a little bit ahead, if jungle is also a little bit ahead.
Just even think about how it paralleled with how like the consensus in the community is. So at the end of spring was when Papa Smithy made his famous comment that Wonder was the best top laner, right? The actual winner of MVP was Caps. So it was the solo lanes that were the strength in G2, the best team in the world, right? Who was the MVP this split? It's the jungler. Everyone praises what Jankos did. So I think he actually, even though that's purely anecdotal, look, I think that even ties into what you're saying. I think people acknowledge where the main, like, I would say, agency in the game is at the moment.
I mean, the OP champion in Sylas went from top and mid to jungle, so that's also a
jungle
thing.
Champion, yeah, true. Except
Kiana's now a jungler too. Got full AP Gragas. Everything, literally everything's in the jungle right now.
Yeah, people are playing like skill junglers, like Kiana, Sylas, and Gragas. These are all skill junglers. So, like, if you're an amazing jungler, you can get so much done. Like, you have one-shot potential, you have flank potential. Like, you control so much of the game.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I made the comment like much earlier on about the 3 best junglers in the LEC are the 3 teams that we're sending to Worlds.
What about Trick?
Which I like. Trick, not a huge fan of Trick.
I'm not that big a fan of him.
Yeah, I think Trick has a big brain but no hands. Like mechanically, I just see so many mistakes from that guy. Like Elite, he can't land a Sejuani ultimate, can't land a Cocoon on Elise.
He's garbage on Elise, isn't he?
It's rough.
So
that's my problem, Loco, is like, first of all, he's in Schalke. So you have to realize in Schalke, no one's putting you out of your comfort zone. They just do exactly the things that Schalke is good at all the time, and that's all they do. So the thing with him is he actually will look better, in my opinion, in a team like Schalke than he will if you just put him in a different team. Like, you go and put him in Fnatic, mate, he's going to have a nightmare. Like, this will be a bad fucking time for him. So I think he's a bit overrated, but I do think he was the right player for that team, though. I'll give them credit. I thought it was a risky pickup, but it worked out for him, so fair play.
He must be incredible in scrims, because I know Wonder said he was like a top 2 jungler after Jankos, and I forgot someone else also praised the hell out of Trick. So yeah, he must be doing crazy things in scrims.
Must be brilliant at ganking Wonder, right? Okay, so everyone just watch what he does in scrims, and they figure it all out.
Which is funny because he never goes top lane on stage.
Oh yeah, the other person was Perks, but I viewed like Perks saying that a little bit as like Perks maybe standing up for a team. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you'd think Perks would be tired of just giving stuff to him. He gave him MVP awards, he gave him titles. Like, take some up for yourself, Perks. Why do you have to give up all the time? You're allowed to succeed as well, mate. And that's the problem in Perks' career. When he gives things away, he gives away his mid lane spot, they win MSI. He gives away the MVP, he wins LEC in his first time. He gives away everything, right? And he gets in return. He's like some like biblical fucking parable or something. But then the one time he tried to take everything, the funnel meta, worst split ever in terms of final placing, 5th to 6th. So the problem is he's become too unselfish. It's all right, Perks. I'll work with you, mate. I'll make you into a proper selfish cunt.
Let's shift into like Worlds, and like there was like a recent thread in Reddit about if it's Yanko said he thinks Europe is gonna win Worlds, either G2 or Fnatic. And one thing I wanted to ask about, not regarding G2, not regarding Fnatic, is the Worlds is hosted in Europe. How big of a play or how big of a factor is that for you guys in terms of like teams having actual home field advantage in League of Legends and in esports in general?
What do you think, Ender?
I mean, I think it's just really nice. The biggest thing is just you don't have to travel and like readjust to a new time zone. So I think that's always like the jet lag thing it's a meme, but it's also like, I don't think it like stops you from being a good team, but it definitely like it wastes the first couple days that you are in a new country, right? From like trying to practice or do anything like that. So I think it's just like naturally going to be like feel nice for the teams. And I also know like we're going to Madrid and Paris, and the crowds there are absolutely nuts. So that's going to be for playoffs, right? So like in terms of like home field advantage, like thinking about the crowd and that sort of stuff too, in those situations, like those are two of like the loudest fan bases you will like experience inside of an arena. And that's just got to feel great.
Because like historically in like the last 3 years, like Korea didn't win in Korea, China didn't win in China, and like NA has never won. So like historically, like the home field advantage, like just
I'm not sure NA not winning was not about Worlds not being there enough, Loco, because they've already had Worlds the most out of everyone as far as I know. Yeah, exactly. I know. But anyway, I see the pattern you were making. The problem is, Loco, I personally actually in esports don't believe in a home field advantage. I don't think it exists, because my concept goes like this. First of all, if you want it to exist, like you're saying, from jet lag and those sorts of things, you need it to be like old school, where you have a 3-day tournament and it's like you fly in the day before, maybe you have 1 day off to try and reset. And if anyone knows, like medical professionals usually say it's supposed to take 1 day per hour you want to switch your sleep schedule. So obviously, if you've come from Korea to, in the past, it might have been Katowice for IEM or something, there's no way you can arrive 1 day before and reset your whole body clock. You can't do it. But as Ender says, it's not that great an excuse. Like if you're a faker, you're still faker. You don't wake up the next day and find that you're fucking like Vardags or something, some shit player. Like, no, you're still faker. So to me, it's like, yeah, that would have an effect to some degree, but maybe, especially for top pros, maybe it's a maximum 3%, let's say. Maybe it can affect them before 5%. As long as there's nothing egregious, that they're not ill, they aren't on completely the wrong schedule. But the problem for me is when you go like you do at Worlds and you come weeks in advance, and then you like, sometimes you're there and maybe your group doesn't even play on the first day and you have all this time to acclimatize. I think at that point in time, most of these pros are used to going to different locations, like they are at the studio and playing their game there. So I think most of them are good enough, actually. It doesn't matter. Like, it won't really affect it. My theory goes like this. I actually don't think that having like home field advantage. So for example, the famous sports reason is because of the crowd, right? If the crowd's all on your side, you're going to feel awesome, right? I personally don't believe in that, because I think it goes like this. I think that that's just what you call survivorship bias. So if you're on an aeroplane, right, and everyone dies except you, part of you, just because it's human nature, will think like, but why was I chosen? Why did I? It's like you didn't. It was random. Like, it was actually, you could have been the guy next to you, could be the one alive, and you could be dead. So nothing you did actually made you alive. So my point here is, the guy only thinks he's special because he survived, right? So what happens is, when you have the home crowd and you win, and maybe you do better than normal, you think, that's what it is. It was the home crowd. But the problem is this, Loco. I will acknowledge that certain players, especially young players, if a crowd cheers, that's their crowd for them, they might get excited and play better, right? Here's what no one acknowledges. What about when the crowd cheers for you and you get excited and you get a kill and you're so excited you go for the next kill as well and you fuck it all up and wreck the whole game? No one ever remembers that, do they? No one ever brings that up about the crowd, do they? Even though that's another completely logical scenario that could happen. You could get too hyphy from it, right? You could try and play to the crowd even and do some crazy move that you wouldn't do if you're in a neutral area. So my problem is, for the actual player who's getting the benefit of the crowd, I think it depends on who they are. I think that's coin flip as to whether that helps.
Let me give you...
Whereas, listen, listen, one last detail. But the area I do think it exists in terms of crowd advantage is just the team that isn't getting cheered for. I think some players, again, it's a coin flip though, some players do certainly get wrecked if nobody in the crowd wants to cheer for them, or even if the crowd cheers against you. That will fuck with some players' heads. The problem is, even though this is an even smaller, like, countervailing balance to that, I think most players don't like being cheered against. You get a few, very few rare players who are just legends who actually might even play better because of that. So I think it's too much of a mixed bag on either side on that one. I don't think it's clear cut as to which helps you.
One thing, this is Weldon science. I remember him saying it before, but he said like when you have adrenaline running, and then when you're like extremely hyped, like you make the best decision possible when you're like pumped full of adrenaline, like in like split-second decision making. Like apparently, like that's when you're supposed to make. Like that's when you're supposed to.
So what you're telling me is Weldon had a severe lack of adrenaline in his system during the gauntlet and during that semi-final against Team Liquid.
Probably.
Weldon, just get some adrenaline going, bro. Start making some good decisions, homie. We need to win some of these matches, boy. Also, don't ever call anything that Weldon Green says science, because it is literally the anathema of science. Call it voodoo. Weldon voodoo. There you go. This is some Weldon voodoo, and I'll go, oh, right, cool. Not going to judge your culture. It's your shit. It's your tradition, but they've got a different way of thinking over there, Anyway, whatever. That ends the Weldon bashing segment of the show because he's not at Worlds. So maybe on the NA show. I've got a question for you then. So one team we haven't talked about yet is the Schalke team who, listen, they were third in the fucking LEC this split. Like on paper, even though Splice was, as we said before with the initial conversation, they were supposed to be the true third seed. There was an argument coming into this match that Schalke should win this match and they should get through the gauntlet in second or third, probably third, since they already just played Fnatic right before and lost to them. What did you think about this, Ender? Were you underwhelmed by Schalke in this gauntlet?
Oh, absolutely. And especially with like the series that happened the day before, everyone thought it was going to be a 3-0, but it was going to be for Schalke.
Yes.
Right? I think even like if you look stylistically, I always thought Schalke had the right matchup into Splice. Like Schalke were always a team that was like best known for their team fighting. And they sort of, they played the ARAM style. They would like find fights always around mid lane before like trying to fight around objective. They would just like see a moment where they had a numbers advantage and force a fight on top of you, which is why I always thought even if Splice is at their usual level, Schalke should in theory be able to beat them because they punish all the mistakes that Splice do make. And I was very surprised with how weak they showed like in those moments, because I thought they actually like had some pretty solid early games going against Splice, but they were never able to execute on it. And part of that was like Splice just looked much different on that day, but I also just didn't feel like Schalke were ever really like playing offense League of Legends. Like it was sort of backwards what I expect from them. They were like much more reactionary and not taking the right fights.
I'm with you on that, by the way. Like the thing that I found so disappointing about this series, the fact it wasn't that close even, is the main thing about Schalke. Like, here's the thing: unlike some of the other teams like Splice and Fnatic, there's nobody thought Schalke ever had a chance to win the LEC and beat G2 and all the rest of it because they are so flawed when they play teams like G2 and Fnatic. It's ridiculous. But the point is, actually, against everyone else, they do fine because like the setup time they need and the lanes that they need to succeed, that does fine against every other team in the league. But I actually thought, logically, Splice isn't going to fucking shut him down early. It's going to be fine. There's going to be no problem at all. But you're right. Like, you actually look at the game, it was a mad mismatch.
It's like, so Kelsey Mother calls it lazy narrative when you talk about teams and, like, their generalities. Like, Schalke's generality is, like, Abadage kind of sucks. They can't really play mid and jungle, and they just constantly play around bot lane, and top is an island. Like, they actually play to that meme of themselves, or that caricature of that. Yeah, they play that exact caricature.
They're the most predictable team of all the teams in the league, in my opinion. They do exactly the same thing every time.
There's like times where Odo Omne is playing Kennen, and like their mid and jungle is like okay or like even formidable, but in that series, like they became that exact caricature. Like Karma, like play on an island. We're only gonna play for upset. Like we're gonna win through upset. Like it doesn't matter if we lose mid and jungle. We're gonna get everything done from bottom side of the map. And they were literally just that team. And I cannot believe like they have all that time to prep for Gauntlet, and they're just like this is it. This is who we are.
I think they just thought it would be good enough, Loco. I think they thought what they had was good enough to win.
Yeah, I also think like you just look at like the problems that exist on this team, and like a lot of them showed up. Like you talked about Odoamne, but like Odoamne is like such a weird player to me because like sometimes he can do like ridiculous things, find like the perfect flank on Kennen, wipe the entire team fight. Other times he fully pushes away from top lane. His jungler's bot side, and he's like, "What if I walked up and tried to hit this tower?" And then he gets ganked and died. And this happens like I swear once a game. Like it happens all the time. And then you have like the classic Abadage thinks he can take a fight. He can't take the fight, dies to enemy mid lane tower. Like this stuff just happens way too much for a team that I think we're in a perfect position to like cruise into worlds here with how the weekend had gone.
They do some of the weirdest shit ever, though. Like the first pick Lucian or like the first rotation Lucian, no one can beat us. Like when we're playing Lucian, like some of these things just will not work when it's so blatantly obvious, like what you're trying to do. And like often, like the Odoamne point, I think the thing is like he wants to be a carry player, and he's probably unhappy with like the role he's given, where he's just really pigeonholed into being independent. So he tries to get the most out of like being on an independent island, and that's where like hitting the turret comes in. That's where like going for CS when he shouldn't, when the jungler is on his side of the map. Like he tries to build his lead. When you shove a carry player into like an independent role, they're like, okay, well I'm still a carry player. I'm still better than the tank player. So even when I play tanks, even when I play like lanes that shouldn't be overly aggressive, I'm gonna try to push my edge and I'm gonna try to min-max.
I have the other take on that, because the thing is, historically, like I referred to earlier, Odoamne's whole rep is the opposite. He's the player who needs no resources and allows you to put all your resources in the other lane. So on paper, you go, that's perfect for a team with upset. It's brilliant. Let's get everything into upset. And now in terms of Abadage, you hope if he becomes a star in the future, Abadage as well. That's like, I normally I like it when you like, it's actually like restriction necessitates where you will play. It's just obvious to everyone. You don't have to sit down and have a discussion. And I'm like, actually, I think I should carry the team. It's like, no, everyone knows and understands their role. The problem is this. Normally, you want that type of player to be someone who is very integral to the team. He understands everything that goes on in the team, how everyone else wants to play. That's why he's able to give up to let those players succeed more. The problem I see with Odoamne is, and basically, if you remember the episode we had when Dylan Falco, the coach of the team, was on this show, he pretty much admitted it. Like, they don't know what they're doing with Odoamne. Like, he kind of doesn't fit their team. Like, he probably should be in a different squad. So I still think he's a player who has potential to be a good player again in LEC, but I don't think on this team. So in my opinion, if I had to speculate as to why he did all these weird mistakes, I would suggest that's because he doesn't have a feel for the rest of the team and what they're doing and isn't like connected with them essentially. I think that's him trying to be a hero. I think he's trying to do too much. He's trying to think, oh, fuck, I don't want to just be useless and do nothing. So I'll try and because remember, the worst thing about League of Legends is because everything in the game is so situation dependent, if you misread the situation, you can easily mindfuck yourself. You're doing the right thing when it's the wrong thing. So here's what you do, Loco. In the scenario Ender described before there, what you do is you think to yourself, jungler's going bottom. They would never expect me to make a play top. But if I make a play top, brain quickly goes, what do those analysts always say? Oh, I was putting pressure on the map to, like you just start, you remember all the shit you heard from the VOD review session. The problem is when you then die, you remember like, shit, that didn't work at all, actually. And it's only in that moment do you realize all the analysis falls away and you realize actually it was just a terrible player. It was just a bad League of Legends player, wasn't it?
It's when you think you're a genius and then all of a sudden you're not.
Of course.
I do think, or I know at least, Upset has a really big voice on that team as well. So to sort of circle back to like the first pick Lucian and all that stuff, like he's a player that's like super convinced that like if he can win lane, he can carry the game. So I think that's why we see such a high priority.
By the way,
on that Lucian stuff.
By the way, listen, I've got two things to say here, Upset. Three, actually. One, when I said on Twitter, I made a joke that was like, everyone always complains that Splice is the most boring team. And I'm like, have you ever seen Schalke play? Like, are you fucking kidding me? At least in Splice, there's some like, ooh, maybe they can win this game when it gets to 35 minutes. In Schalke, it's like, who are they playing, right? That team's above them. No, they will lose, right, at the end of the game. And then you just wait for it to play out in the most inevitable manner possible. At the end, go, oh, yeah, turns out they weren't good enough. Cool. Like, that's the most boring shit ever to me. So anyway, the idea that he tried to push back and was like, he literally, this is his pushback. This is how you know he had nothing in the tank. He didn't push back and say, like, I disagree because of this reason, or actually this player is really exciting. He just said, like, so what's interesting League of Legends to you? It's like, right, so that's the absolute bottom of the barrel. Your logic was like, your question essentially was like some philosophical one where you were sat on like a lily pad, like, is there even such a thing as an interesting League of Legends team? It's like, yes, everyone except you and Splice. Fuck off. Number 2. Here's number 2. I'm going to say number 2 in this order, to be fair to Upset. I actually don't think Schalke is that good a team. I actually think where they've finished overall, finishing 3rd, having a chance to go, I think that's about the best you could hope for. I think overall the team generally performed to where the players can perform. I think the problem is it's a flawed squad. Like, I would change a couple of players, like I said, even though I like Odu I'd probably change them out. I might even change the support. Might be a bit more of a controversial one, but I don't know. I always thought the mid isn't quite as good as he's built to be in a league that's full of superstar mids. I think those are problems in a team. But even though I criticised them, number 3, hello, Upset. Everything Ender just said there was right. You get the champions you want. You get the resources you want. My boy Odoamne is hitting towers because no one's on his side of the fucking map. He's playing in the fucking, whatever it is, twisted time, tree line or whatever it is. What the fuck was that, Upset? You're supposed to be the new Forgiven, mate. You're the old Reckless. What are you talking about? If I wanted someone to pick Reckless, to pick the Ocean, do fuck all in a game and not hard carry it, I'd go back in time, I'd pop out and go, all right, Reckless, all right, no, don't join Elements just yet. Come with me, mate. I need you in 2019. Come all the way through. Come on out. He plays the game. At the end of the game, he goes, I don't understand. We lost 0-3. Why did you bring me here? And then I just turn Upset and go, see? What the fuck are you doing? Now let's go back to 2016. I'll introduce you to the man you thought you were. See, what the fuck is this? Like, I actually was mad underwhelmed by Upset in this series. What the fuck? Because the thing is, I don't 100% buy into it, but I do think if you look at his raw, like, skill set, like, if you were doing one of those, like, okay, so you guys will know this because you're North Americans. So, you know, like, in the NBA games where they have the rankings skill set, like NBA 2K, it's like, right, his jump shots like 97 or something, his speed's like 70. If you were doing that, Upset has all the skills to be a Forgiven, to be a super hard carry, mechanical lane dominant player who you could build a whole squad around. Forgiven, Double Lift, Uzi Eye, we all know the names that everyone thinks of, modern day Deft. These are all players who do this. I have to say, he does it sometimes in Schalke. He didn't fucking do it at all in this gauntlet, though. I think it was mad underwhelming.
We should have a Listen Loco bingo, and what if it? One of it should be Doran shits on Reckless. It happens almost every show.
I love it. The thing that sort of baffles me about Upset and sort of this shift to playing like bot lane focus is that when you talk about like him ticking all the boxes, he's an insane team fighter. You look back to 2018 summer split, like he was our best team fighting AD carry in the league. Like, he's absolutely incredible. And I see it still in 2019. And he never got resources. You look at last summer, you look at this spring, like jungle proximity, like super, super low around his lane. The team always was focusing on like mid and top lane. Yep. He was like, I'm going to farm up while Ignar roams mid lane or while Vander roams mid lane. And I'm going to get to 3 items and then I'm going to win every team fight. So to sort of hear about like this shift in mentality where it's like, I want Lucian every single game. We're going to kill them in the 2v2. Ignar, you can't leave my lane. I want you to fight with me is just very, very confusing to me because I generally think that Schalke like should be our best team fighting team in the league with this player alongside them. And they just sort of were saying, no, let's go more lane dominant instead.
Upset definitely isn't Spring Upset. And also like the pieces around him aren't that good, and I also think Ignar Upset is actually a mismatch, like in terms of like how they want to play, and also when you have Ignar and Upset together, and like Ignar plays champions like Blitz and Leona, and you want to be bot lane, and Upset wants to play all these hyper carries, it makes your team gravitate towards bot lane so much.
Here's what's crazy. This is what's so crazy. Ignar is the first player I've ever seen to have Uzi Eye analysis, but when people do watch him play. Like, the reason why Uzi Eye analysis is a thing, Loco, is because, let's face it, 99% of people watching this show right now don't watch the LPL. Of course not. It's not that interesting to them. Even if you tell them the best teams there, they think, I'll see them at Worlds. What the fuck do I care? I'm watching my teams in NA, EU, whatever. So as a result, I always tell people that if you watched Uzi Eye last year or in 2017 and you were like, this guy's the best ADC ever, you're right, but only now. You weren't right if you kept saying that every fucking year from 2013 on, because he had flaws as a player. It's just at Worlds, he would actually overperform. He would always be at his absolute peak when he came to Worlds. So that's why I always thought people didn't know the real Uzi Eye. Now, what confuses me, Loco, is there's a very logical reason they didn't know the real Uzi Eye. They only saw him at Worlds. He played better. Then they wouldn't see him in LPL, so they wouldn't see his everyday level. What doesn't make any sense to me is They've now seen Ignar's level every day in LEC, but they still talk like Ignar's like some monster support player. Who's like, people make Ignar sound like fucking Mad Life or something. Like, he's just a good player. Like, if you put all the supports in LEC right now, I think he'd probably be like dead in the middle. Like, he's not fucking top player. I don't think he's the worst by any measure. He's just an okay player who needs exactly the right team if he wants to have any chance of success, in my opinion. So I know people still remember that Thorin, he almost beat SK. Right, first of all, it was 2 years ago. Shut the fuck up. A lot of shit used to happen 2 years ago. Secondly, there's the whole angle that, like, his strengths, yes, exist, but you can't just ignore his weaknesses. And he clearly has weaknesses.
And that was also a very specific case where Misfits figured out the meta a little bit better than other teams. They're like, well, when people run Ardent, we'll play aggressive, and our jungler will run Ardent, and our bot lane will be crazy good.
They had the perfect like counter in that one moment in a bizarre way that would never happen again. Like, the odds on that even happening in Ignar again aren't that high.
Yeah, I don't know about like Ignar, what to say. I know for a fact he's a misfit with upset, and then like beyond that, I would love to see him be more flexible, but there's just times where he's inting so much. There's just times where he's forcing. Ignar forces so much. Ignar has a way he wants to play.
I'll give you an example. This is whenever we used to have to criticize the Misfits team before they were fucking dead. Rest in peace, all that shit, whatever. Like, but when that used to be an actual team, you know, back when Den Spook still thought he had like some relevance in League of Legends, and whenever we used to diss them, because obviously Origin and Misfits are the two teams that have been criticized. I'd say Fnatic as well in context. They're the three teams that have been the most heavily scrutinized this year for obvious reasons. Superstar rosters, sometimes misperforming or underperforming. And whenever we used to criticize on my EU show the Misfits team, one thing actually Veteran used to say, which I used to think was pretty on point, was he used to say, in his opinion, Misfits and Schalke should pretty much just swap the support players. Like, everything that Ignar did that I'm saying now doesn't even help Schalke that much because they don't play around it, would be fucking exactly what Misfits needed. Like, some engaged, some like aggressive champion playing, like, let's actually get this bot lane rolling. Meanwhile, as much as, like, I never thought Gorilla did very well in LEC, but I think he'd do fine just sat next to fucking Upset in the lane and just playing the fucking all the normal champions that he plays. Like,
plays Anna.
I think Upset even be loving that. I think actually that was on point. It's not a bad swap if you want to do it. If you do like a fantasy trade or some shit, you know.
Teams would never do that swap just because of like money that's involved, and they also never want to admit like, oh, like we picked up the wrong player. Like, teams almost always see it all the way through.
Yeah, of course. Luckily, teams don't ever have to admit they're wrong. I'll do that for them. See, we all have our place in the scene. You know, we're all together. We all make the scene stronger.
Misfits also admitted they were wrong. They
did eventually, yeah. They did. To be fair, Loco, they did kind of admit everything was wrong. They literally just said, actually, we're going to bench literally everyone. But not only that, we're going to actively release you from your contracts, which means we're not ever going to use you again. And if at this point, they're probably like using fucking Starlin level technology to like edit fucking those players out of photographs that they were in. And just be like, no, well, you're not. Ben was just posing by himself in front of this fountain with his arm out. Like Soaz is just like deleted out the picture or something. Then again, though, that's the one positive to being Alfari, isn't it? Is that you look at the way the year ended in Origin and go, oh, fucking hell. And then part of you goes, at least I don't have to think, should I have stayed in Misfits or not? That's the only possible worst outcome could happen. At least he knows he did do the right move by going Origin, right? He gave himself a chance, Loco. At least he came second once.
Yeah, so
just
like
imagine how Soaz feels. Soaz left second place Fnatic, and now Fnatic challenged G2, the 1M assigned, is going into Worlds. People are saying they're going to do great. Like,
no, it's that one's brutal, especially because if you remember, cause Fnatic began with that like 0-4 start to the spring split. It even looked like instantly Soaz was going to get to do what I wanted, basically, was just be like, look, I was better than Bwipo. Why the fuck did you let me go? So it looked like that was going to happen, but like almost every second after about, I'm going to guess like week 6 of spring, that storyline is dead completely and will never be resurrected.
Soaz and Fevin are at a really, really like difficult crossroad. Like, I'm not sure what they're gonna both do next split, and I hope they get offers. And they've been like amazing players, but man, EU has so much talent. It feels like it was such a wrong time to fuck up.
Tough life, bro. What else do we have to talk about now? Let me think.
maybe LEC broadcast. Like LEC broadcast has been fucking killing it. Like they released a stat like the most 5 watch games were all like G2 Fnatic, like, and probably it was all 5 LEC games, like the most 5 watch like games of the season, like for both LCS and LEC. And LEC also has like its own really unique flair. Like everyone on LEC like has a personality, where I feel like everyone on LCS is like typical sportcaster like turned like esportcaster. Like Ender is like cringy in his own way, Vedius is cringy in his own way, like Medius is cringy in his own way, like Frost is like
Medic.
Medic, not Medius. Frost is like very articulate,
Just
like
for his own sanity.
Yeah, she's very opinionated. Like Quickshot has, how would I describe Quickshot? Like he's an entertainer.
Has different colored hair.
But like everyone is like very unique in LEC, where I feel like everyone in LCS is all very monotone, and they're all very similar to each other.
Well, the irony of you saying they're all very similar to each other, I guess it's not irony, it's literally what you expect. The idea they're all very similar to each other. There's Froscorius, Quickshotius, like fucking hell, like what are you? You're ridiculous. Like,
It's all just different versions of Vedius.
No, but
I mean, I think. Yeah, I think we're really lucky in like the freedom that we have to like do all of these things, because a large part of how we like build these personalities is through like segment ideas that happen almost exclusively in ReadyCheck, right?
Sure.
Whether it's, you know, Vedius doing Flexius, or Medius and Vedius with Medic and that sort of stuff, or me and Shocks doing LEC update. These are all ideas that we have pitched ourselves, and then basically been like, producers are like, you know what? If you believe it, like go for it. Like they give us the faith, I guess, like build out these segments. And then we do them and they work. And it feels really great to be in this environment where we literally have the freedom to do just about anything that we want to. You know, we come up with some form of content and they give us the support, like graphics and all that, in order to make it happen. And more often than not, it works out.
And by the way, just as an aside, like definitely the broadcast stuff all changed, obviously, and they had their own reasons why, like different people took over. Quickshot himself has a lot more agency. He's not just a guy on the broadcast, you know, like there's a lot of good reasons to why that's changed. But to tie into Ender's point about like all the big G2 Fnatic games being the true marquee matchups they're supposed to be, like the difference is in NA, like, forget even TSM-CLG, because that doesn't mean anything anymore in the way it used to. But even if you'd picked like TLC9, that's not a crazy marquee matchup in the way that you want it to be. You want it to be like, this is the finals, let's watch it again. It's crazy. So I'll say one thing as well is mad props to G2, because let's be real. G2 are the ones that have completely changed the way that like trash talk, banter, like even just how you engage with your fans goes. Because if you want to have stuff like a massive regular season game, you need stuff like hype before the game. You need people to even inform you the game's like all the shit on Twitter helps with that. It gets people fired up for the match. Like I actually think one of the reasons why people were so hyped for those games is because, you know, whoever wins is going to talk mad shit. Like, do you think if Fnatic hadn't won all the regular season games, they wouldn't have talked mad shit? Dude, you just know, because they already did it before the series ended. They were just waiting with tweets before the end of that 5th game, because that's why they did that World of Warcraft one before the game even ended, you know, like that was during the series. Like, you think they haven't been waiting the whole time they've been being bantered? It's just the problem is G2's really good at it because it fits their personality. That's who they are. The reason I always make that joke about Fnatic is even Sam Matthews himself, the owner of Fnatic, tries to do it. Like he tries to pretend like, haha, yes, hello, fellow gamers. I'm going to banter you now. You know who I'd rather not be? G2 eSport. But the problem is when they do it, it's just like that meme with the fucking mask over the guy crying underneath. It's like, we know you're trying to pretend like you're cool with banter and hold it together, but this banter is tearing you apart. It hurts you so much. Every time Ocelot tweets, it's like a fucking mind bullet that just destroys your mentality. It's amazing. I love some of the like, by the way, best tweet of the entire split is the one where Ocelot dissed Fnatic, right? And then just for the meme value, took that meme that famously where they fired the immortal social media guy who now works for Cloud9. You know, the one where it says like, you know, this person's, I don't know who did this, but you know, this tweet does not represent who we are as an organization. And this person will no longer be working for us. But he just did that about himself. And he just said like, this tweet does not represent at all what Carlos R should say. And he will no longer, whoever made it will no longer be working for this. Like he just memed on it completely, which was god tier meme. teaming, by the way. Like, he just nailed that so well. So, mad props to G2, because on the one hand, in the game, they've been amazing and changed the whole Regents era. But the shit they've done out of the game, which to be fair, you have to also be the best team, I think, to really do that. It's hard to do if you're like the fourth best team. Like, if Schalke did that, it's not like you guys should just copy them. If you do that, it's not going to be as effective. But the dual effect, that's made it so fucking sick this year. It's made it, it's automatically brought the spice.
Yeah, I love Carlos's vision for G2 and the trash talk they bring. And I think like the thing that sums up best for me is I had spoken with him like a few times before, but at the start of this year, I brought him in to record an episode of Between Two Iverns, which is basically like a spoof on Between Two Ferns. And I'm like, so, hey, I prepared some questions and I hope it's okay. I want to like,
and he was just like, no, just do it.
I was like, I want to do some banter with you. So I was like, oh yeah, I love it. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, and he basically laid out his whole plan for G2. Where he's like, I want us to like trash talk other teams. I don't want us to pull any punches. I'm like, yes, this is perfect. It was like one of our best episodes ever. So it was just like literally from the top down, this is the vision for this team and for this brand. And I actually don't think it gets any better than that.
No, I think they've nailed it. I think they've killed it completely. Because here's the thing. That all sounds like some sort of a side topic or an issue, which it is. But the point is, all of those things collectively, even if they add a small part, when you add them all up, that's what makes the atmosphere of the game. That's what makes the league cool. Add in the broadcast stuff. They have, like, here's the other thing. They have all the room they want on the broadcast. But if the players don't give you anything, if the matches are boring and the players have no personality, you're trying to get blood out of a stone, as the idiom in English goes. You're just working with nothing. So the key thing for me in Europe is, it feels like all these elements are coming together, some of them independently, but now together at the same time. That's why, at the moment, the whole league's popping off. And here's the thing, Loco. The big problem for me when you contrast LEC with LCS is, like, it's very easy from that context to, like, look at what LCS doesn't do. But I also feel like in LCS, they'd need to go their own route with it anyway. Like, they wouldn't be able to do exactly the same style of track. Like, they'd need to find their own, even if they went that route, which they don't have to do. You know, there's many different styles of broadcast. They'd have to find their own flair for it anyway, I think.
The fact that LCS is still talking about TSM CLG this split is, like, painful.
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. That's like Star Wars, mate. Like, listen, just forget about the new shit. It's over. Like, it used to be good a while ago when we were all kids, but we've all grown up now, and that's just for nostalgia purposes. It's not relevant. It's not art.
The sad thing is, like, I feel like LCS has some of the best, like, some of the casters in LCS I think are insane. I think Captain Flowers is insane. I think Jad is really analytical. I think Jad is one of the smartest and, like,
wait a minute,
most
you're counting Jad? Hasn't he only done about 4 games this year? So what the fuck are you counting him for? You just came back.
Okay, well, I mean, if we exclude Jad, then it becomes.
If you have to go to Jad second, then they're in fucking trouble, mate. Like, NA is not that bad. They've got.
I just really love Jad. I actually do love Jad.
They've got Jad. I think Skara still technically lives in the region. I Will Dominate. Like, was born there or something. Like, you're fucking far down the barrel.
Okay, I think Dash is an excellent host. I think Mark, Z, and Dash like really found their footing together.
Still got Bjergsen, the best mid laner ever. Who else, Loco?
Just NA storylines are so predictable. Like Doublelift
like
winning
Bjergsen
again.
being the best mid laner, you daft cunt. Why don't you just let that go? Why don't you just let that go? That's like Star Wars. Like,
I don't know.
Bjergsen's like Luke Skywalker at the end of the last movie. It's like you just betrayed everything your character was meant to represent. You get out the movie. Get out. Just get the fuck out.
But
Reggie's fucking whoever that woman is who used to be Princess Leia who died, Carrie Fisher or whatever. Shout out. Famous drug addict or something. I don't know. Didn't follow her life much. She's in Star Wars mainly. I think she was a drug addict. I think she was in a cork in the 80s or something. Whatever, look it up.
Maybe it's
we can all do our research.
Maybe it's because TL was so good and other teams like faltered around them, but like this split was so predictable and like all the storylines were really boring. Like the only interesting storyline was like TSM crashing and burning and like Clutch doing well. Everything else was just so predictable this year.
I have a question for you though, which is if we look towards Worlds, right? You brought it up. I can't remember who it was who said. Who was it who brought up earlier? Was it you, Loco? But the point about Jankos saying like G2 or Fnatic is going to win.
Yeah,
I think it was you who said it, right? Mm-hmm. Right. The part about that I thought was interesting that everyone else seems to have missed is forget the part where you think he's just bringing up Europe. Forget the part where he's saying my team's going to win Worlds. The big statement there is Jankos implying Fnatic is going to win Worlds with this team. Not with last year's team, with Nemesis. He implied they can win Worlds. What? Am I the only one who's like, listen, I have them on the docket. You know, if I'm making the teams that can win Worlds, if I'm like, I'm going to do one in my head now. I haven't actually done this on paper, but I would guess Fnatic would be like 6th or 7th or something. I think that's probably reasonable, you know. But he makes it sound like it's like G2 Fnatic and then, you know, add one Asian team and there's your 3 or something. Like, I'm amazed he was that hyped on their side of it. Like, I thought the trash talk there would be like, Europe will win Worlds if we win Worlds. Otherwise, you know, maybe Fnatic will make like top 4 if they do well or something. Like, what do you think on this end? I think it's pretty bold thinking Fnatic's going to win Worlds.
It's a very bold statement. It was surprisingly wholesome at the finals afterwards. I forget who was doing the interview, but they basically from G2 side said that they think or they hope that they meet Fnatic in Paris in the finals.
Right.
So like, this has been a long time. They have like a lot of respect for Fnatic, even if they trashed.
That was a bit nice, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, I think I would be surprised to see Fnatic win Worlds, you know, with all these other great teams here, because I also think that there are some flaws that other teams are going to recognize in Fnatic. It's very interesting when we see them play a team like G2, because the game is going to look completely different to when those teams play any other team in the world, I feel like, where it gets like super messy and they're just constantly trying to force errors out of each other. So I think you have to like sort of like separate that series from the actual strength of these two teams going.
Yeah, the problem is, Ender, this is the real issue, is because this split especially, Fnatic has played G2 almost all the time really close. It's not like when they didn't even get to meet them in the spring playoff. The problem is people are now, it's basically what NA has claimed all along. They're not wrong. People are judging Fnatic on their strength against G2. So the logic goes, if G2 is the best, then Fnatic look like the second best, right? That's kind of the logic. But they do have games against other teams that look very different. So what were your thoughts about that?
So I think one of the really interesting things that a lot of teams that like weren't at MSI, for example, are going to experience going to Worlds is I think you actually have to learn how to play against G2 as opposed to playing against any other team. Because the way G2 play the game against you is that they are constantly trying to like basically when you're playing the game, a lot of times like the process you go through in your mind is like you see what's happening on the map, you think about what your opponent can do, then you decide what you're going to do, and then you do it. Right. And G2 will keep trying to force like plays and make moves before you've actually like reached the point of which like you know what play you're going to make. So you're never like the one thinking proactively playing against G2, which is something that Fnatic actually really figured out. If you think about what they did in their, especially their first series against G2 with like all the globals and stuff, they chose a lot of tools that could play super well reactionary into G2. And those absolutely slam G2. You look at those first 2 games, you have absolutely no chance for your G2 because they're constantly trying to force these things and it gets turned around on them almost immediately. But then they also did sort of the other side of that coin too, whereas as soon as like the stuff like the Twisted Fate got banned away from them, they said, okay, now we actually just have to think and act faster than G2, which is not an easy thing to do. And so much of that is going to be driven by junglers and supports. So in order to beat G2, you have to have a really insane proactive jungle and support to be able to beat them. And I think now, if you look at that, like, zoom out, that's going to apply to Fnatic as well, because a lot of what Fnatic do is in a very similar style to G2 because they have just been trained by this team. And no other team around the world has been trained in this same way. So when these teams come to Europe and have to play against these guys, it's going to be a while, I think, before they actually figure out how to play again.
I actually think that that's one of the reasons why SK Telecom had at times issues against G2 is like the Korean way of playing. The biggest weakness to it is Koreans have always been the ultimate region. That's like that famous quote that says like the greatest swordsman in the world has nothing to fear from the second greatest swordsman. He has something to fear from the man who's never picked up a sword. Because the idea is that guy actually could do the completely wrong move, which you just weren't ever prepared for. Whereas the second best swordsman has fundamentally correct technique and you understand when he should parry and when he should block. So the idea is the best and the second best swordsman fighting would be like one of those stupid movie scenes where they're all just constantly clashing the cord and no one ever hits each other, right? But the problem is so to me, in my mind, Koreans, because naturally, I won't say they're totally risk averse, they just think there's like a correct way to play the game. I'd say their equivalent is like Origin in Europe. They think there's like a generally like way you can play that doesn't involve having to have all these messy fights and stuff. So what happens is in League especially, it's something I always think about when I watch Dota, is in League, there's a very well-defined threat level and threat zone for every champion in the game. Like, you know, roughly, as long as I'm slightly outside this area, probably not going to attack me now. He's probably not going to all in me now. They're probably not going to collapse on me now. The reason I bring this up as something I always think when I watch the international is because if you've ever seen Dota 2, like it is amazing the mobility some of the champions have in that game and how they can just dive across the whole map. Like you watch it, like think of how Akali's ult works now. There's like 50 champions in Dota can just do that. And it's like everyone just coming in for a huge team fight instantly. Well, in League, it's not like that, right? But when you play against G2, you think to yourself, like, right, we just had a skirmish here. They killed like 2 people. I killed 1 person. We're backing off now. We're going to set up again. And you're thinking, right, what do we do next? And then they just attack you again on some other angle or some other part of the map. The idea is when they see the angle, they just go through it. It's not because the key thing to me is I think people even overrate what G2's doing. Like G2 aren't really themselves calculating in their brains. Like, and if we go for this fight now and attack this guy here and he comes in, then you'll definitely get. They don't know any of that shit. They're just geniuses. This is intuition. Like what makes it amazing is that they couldn't probably explain what they're doing entirely.
It's actually kind of a problem I have with a lot of analysis in general is like they assume that everything is like super like
calculated.
Advanced. It's like and it's big brain because of this and this. But honestly, when Fnatic and G2 play each other, no one has any idea what teleport cooldowns are. Like you actually can't track like these like and you talk to those players, it's like it's really hard. Like trying to like figure out how to track flashes and all of these things and try to figure out what's going on because it is just so fast. But the thing that I think G2 does uniquely so well to other teams is that they never play defense. And what I mean by that is a lot of times the game is sort of, it trades off in like turns where you use like pushing lanes to like rotate more members in towards mid lane, you have a numbers advantage, and then you can like push and like put down vision, go for an objective, do a lot of this stuff. And then after you do that, you have to go catch your side lanes. And then it gives the other team their turn to then make a play. Whereas with G2, what they do a lot is they will like fight you. They beat you in a fight. And instead of pushing for turret plates or pushing for a tower, they understand resetting really, really well. They will reset when you're dead, when you can't make a play, so that they can be back on the map first. And they never give up any time to the enemy team to make a play against them. They're always on the offense. And that's why you always have to react into them.
I have always thought like that is one area. It's funny, I'll actually bring up a little digression here because it fits this topic and I thought it would be interesting to bring up at some point, but in League, there's very rarely good chances. So something that's very, very interesting to me is last year, so late 2018, after the international in Dota, the team that won it was actually the team that won it against this year, which is very relevant. OG. And the interesting thing about them as a team, right, was that going into the international last year, they actually had a lineup of players where one of the players, for example, had never played as a pro, and they'd actually lost a bunch of their best players to a rival team, and nobody had any expectations. Even the players leaving never ever thought like their old team's going to beat them and win the international. So not only was that crazy that they won, but they even won the international, for people who don't know, playing completely counter to the meta in every regard. Like they played heroes that no one else was playing. At the time, everyone in the last TI 2 years ago said it was like a win lane, win game meta. They played the opposite. They had all the scaling shit and they would just be behind in the game. They did this in the final against PSG all the time. And they would just come back in team fights. They would find the right picks. They would get an opening. And the whole thing that's interesting is this year, the same thing happened. They did nothing the whole year. They didn't win a single big tournament. But then this year they won the international again in different fashion. Now, here's what's interesting. When I did an interview with the like captain of the team of OG at the end of last year, after he'd won the international, one of the things he told me was he actually thinks people in Dota 2, and he's even talking about top pros like legends. He said people in Dota 2 basically have actually been warped by all the tools that they have for the observers, because in Dota especially, they love to follow like the golden experience graph to show like, look, they've got a gold lead. And the point he made was, it's a point that every League fan should understand, which is it doesn't matter if you've got an 8k gold lead on me, if all that's in gold that you never spent on items, for example. Or let's say you have a 2k gold lead on me, but you just spent all your items on vision-based items, and I've just bought a fucking another damage item. I might actually now be more close to you in the next team fight than I was in the one I just lost, even though the tools that we use to set the general storyline might make it seem like I'm even more disadvantaged. And his point basically was that to him, a lot of the game, like you can use some of that stuff to model the game, but to him, people were using it as though it was like, that's all you needed to use. You just looked at that like, right, well, I'm leading, so then I should have like agency here. And it's like, sometimes you don't. Like, I often say this in Counter-Strike, like the scoreboard can be misleading. Like, I can look like I'm really far behind, but actually the way I'm winning rounds now and the way the game's set up, I'm just about to take over and win the whole game, actually. And it's so, I just thought I'd bring it up because it's an abstract point, but I do feel as though that's one thing. Since you were saying there, Endel, about like not understanding the teleport timings and stuff, like a lot of this stuff is stuff where it doesn't matter how everyone in the world would play out a situation. Like, it depends on who the specific team is. It reminds me of that old quote. You remember the famous one that, like, it actually originally came from Moscow 5, but eventually it applied to SK Telecom, where the joke was, if you're 2K ahead of them, you're actually 2K behind. Because the joke is they were always so absurd at team fighting, even from slightly behind, that like you're just even if you're 2K ahead of them, pretty much. Like, you actually aren't ahead. What do you think of this? Because as somebody who casts, it's obviously going to be like tough to deal with that sort of thing, right? Because sometimes you're going to make that mistake where you don't see the graphic of who hasn't spent the money or something, you know.
It's interesting because I think there's two different things here. One is like the overall gold you've earned as a team is a one-to-one like accurate representation of like how you have played so far, like throughout the game. It gives you like, it can let you like infer, predict what will happen next, like that you do have a lead. But one thing we don't show is I guess I would call it like effective gold, where it's gold spent on actual stats. So like if you have 1,300 in the bank, even though on the top of the screen, on the top of the scoreboard, you have a 1,300 gold lead, you haven't spent it. So that means absolutely nothing, right? Like I'm sure you got experience off of that, but the gold itself means nothing. 75 gold on a control ward. Yes, vision's super important, but it doesn't like make you stronger in a fight. So like where gold is usually like it's the indicator for like how strong you are right now. Like it doesn't take that into account necessarily, which can sometimes be a bit of a miss. But at the same time, you need that sort of stuff because no one can look at all the items on the bottom and be like, oh, well, this team has like this much of a lead. Like sometimes you can infer that, but that it gives you like the better idea. And the other thing is like, I think what you were sort of getting at there was like, even if they have a 2K gold lead, you're 2K behind. Part of that is like if the other team is just better, they can come back. But also like champion scaling does play a really big role. So like one of the hardest things to do like on a cast is when a team has a gold lead and you think they're going to lose because like they actually like get outscaled or like they're going to lose the next team fight, and you have to like justify that and because the second you say that, if the other team wins the fight, like
it's going to look like you lose
everything, right?
Yeah.
But
I'll give you an example.
Those are the important things.
Look at that game 5 between Fnatic and G2, where it looked like Fnatic fucked their draft completely, didn't they? It looked like they're in so much trouble. What have they done here? But then it was getting to that point in the game where if you give that on a little bit more time and he starts giving like upgraded death cap to the fucking nemesis, now you're going to be in big trouble. It's true. For this next 5 minutes, you're still going to win the game 100%. But tell you what, if you fuck up here and here, they're actually going to. The problem is, if you're the caster, like you're saying, part of you wants to like, you've got to at least start opening the door that Fnatic can win, because if they start doing it, you then need to continue that on. But as you say, if it doesn't happen, every Fnatic fan in the world is going to be like, "Why are you biased?" Like, oh, you know, like you can't beat that. Unfortunately, I'd just call it occupational hazard. You know.
Yeah.
Another thing about like scaling that I feel like gets never mentioned so much is like whenever people talk about scaling, they always think, does this team beat this team in a team fight in 3 items, in 4 items? Like, who wins? But there's like so many factors that go into it. What if one team has a blitzcrank? Then the team fighting thing doesn't matter. If they get a pick and it becomes a 4v5, like the scaling does not matter. What if one team has a stronger split pusher than the other team? Like, if they can constantly
That's probably the most missed one, Loco. Probably the most misunderstood one is you can have all the scaling you want, mate. If I have the strongest single champion in the game, in the late game, I will win the game if I split push correctly. Like, it doesn't matter at that point. Like that's probably the area that fans are missed the most, because the other team might have all the champs that look like, wow, that comp. Imagine the fight. It's like there's never going to be a fight. Like, I know people from NA are still just like, but why wouldn't there be? Wouldn't we all just meet in the middle and then that's where the fight would take? It's like, no, you can actually go to these things on the side, and as long as you get back before 2 people come and kill you, you sound. So now Hooney's like, two people, right? I'll write that by now. It's when 2 people come, leave the side lane. Yeah, okay.
Our vocab is really important, because when we talk about it as scaling, then it almost just goes straight into teamfight and like who wins later, where the actual words should be like who has a better shot to win at mid game, who has a better shot to win at late game. I'm sure someone can like pick out a better word for it, but just the word scaling has so much connotation with teamfight. Like, people immediately think teamfight, and so do the casters, and fans also have to think of it that way too.
Yeah, I actually think it's an even more widespread problem, is just our terminology is so ludicrously vague in League of Legends. Like, early mid late game might have like meant something in season 3 or season 4 when like games were like much longer. But now the games are ending at 30 minutes. Like, what does mid game actually mean? You know, like a lot of people have different definitions, and I think that like defining those points, defining scaling and different types of scaling, whether it's like side lane or team fight, is a really important thing that's just not happening.
I can tell you the real issue there goes like this. Like, you're absolutely right, because it's one of the things that I've actually made a focus of my career, admittedly more in CSGO, etc. games I'm like more familiar with. I've been around the whole time, you know, because I saw actually, believe it or not, you guys in MOBA games were ahead of us in CS. We didn't even, this is not a joke, have a term for people who were basically supportive players in Counter-Strike. We used to just say they were just a player. And then as a result, the reason why this was very, very prominent in the discussions was fans would just always make Counter-Strike teams that were just the 5 best scorers, basically. Like, it'd be the equivalent of making a football team with 11 strikers. They were just doing that. And their logic was like, well, he's the best player, so put him on. So the reason why, this is the reason I brought this example up. Like, sometimes people complain that in the modern day NBA, for example, or the NFL is not a bad example as well, like some of the position names don't make as much sense for how the player plays now. Like, for example, if you want to look at like Aaron Donald in the NFL, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, the position he plays. Like, the influence he has on the game is 10 times what that role was designed to have, right? But that's because he's an exceptional player. Now, the point is, that doesn't mean we should get rid of the term, because this is the point I was going to make. What they always say about the roles in these games is the reason why they still use the same term is because the role was actually created just to explain very quickly to a layman the difference between players, like I'm saying. So hence why, for example, you have simple terminology like support and carry, which itself gets confusing, because then what if you have like a carry but who plays in a supportive fashion? Or what if you have a support player who might be the best player in the whole league, like Hillesang? He plays like a carry sometimes in some ways. So, it gets confusing. But the thing is, you're right. On the one hand, we need to like update the terminology if we can. The problem is, and this is the real issue, is it's really hard to make it actually get widespread in the community, though. So the real issue is, like, absolutely, and I agree with you, like that. I hope people do articles where, for example, like you say, in season 2, early, mid, and late, it's all you needed. That described the game perfectly. In the modern day, where unless something goes really wrong for both teams, there's not going to be a 50-minute game between 2 top teams in League of Legends. So as a result, the late game now in League of Legends, for normal context, should probably be 30 to 40 minutes in the game. That's probably the late game at this point. So I think personally, we probably just need different terminology. Like, instead of 3 sets of terminology, we probably need 5, right? Like, for example, even saying early game doesn't make much sense anymore. Like, some of the shit Fnatic did with level 1s is very different from how Origin's really good early game was. Like, that was the way they set up the map. Fnatic's was like, they would actually get kills on you at level. Like, they did some amazing shit. So I agree with you. The problem is, like, if your terminology is very limited and very weak, it changes how much you can actually discuss this stuff. Because, like, if you just say early and I say early, who knows what the fuck we actually mean by that, right? I agree, though. There's a lot of upgrading we need for that.
There's
stuff.
like 3 Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, the biggest example for me was at the start of Summer Split, me, Vedius, and Frost all sort of realized we were using the same words, but we meant slightly different things by them. So we actually got in a room and started like hammering through, like, what do you think these words mean? And we talked about like priority.
I saw one that was very interesting. This was in an interview the other day. I'm trying to think who did it though, where they said, and maybe it was Medic. Someone said that you no longer use the word tempo and broadcast unless it's Medic, and he specifically means one thing, right? Because you're right, that term, like, listen, anyone who's watched my talk shows, go back 2 years to 2017, and every show is people like tempo. He had tempo. He came out the best with tempo. He didn't use the tempo. It's like, and you're right. To me, who doesn't know the game too well, I used to actually know less about the game from hearing them say that than if they'd just explained the situation to me.
Exactly. It's like, it's such like, and I know it comes from like chess and that stuff, and it's like a real word to those people.
Sure.
But in League of Legends, I'm convinced it's a fake word, because I hear people say they're like, this team has tempo, which means like it's their turn to be like playing on the offense. But I also hear they have a high tempo jungler. Wait a second. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
a high tempo.
exactly.
How can you have a high tempo jungler if it's just like a map state thing?
That's a Mike Young thing. That's a Mike Young thing.
Yeah. No, I know, but like people like genuinely use it. Like, it actually like blows my mind. And like every analyst I talk to has like a slightly different variation of the word tempo. So we, as a Colorcaster team, literally just decided we're not going to say the word tempo anymore. We're just actually going to explain what we mean. because also outside of
Yes.
like a very small fraction of our viewers that understand like what tempo generally means, no one actually knows what we are talking about when we say tempo. So we say, oh, this team can move first to this objective, or it's their turn to like be on the offensive and look for a play or put down vision and all this stuff. And we actually think it just like makes our analysis like so much more clear now.
One of the problems as well with that is like there's two parts to it there. One, you're absolutely right. One issue is all the experts know what the word means, but it means something slightly different to them.
Yep.
And then they use it differently. So actually it becomes more confusing even when the experts are talking. But then the other problem for me is any of these terms which already had a very strong English meaning. You gave a great one there, tempo. Well, the problem is what they mean by high tempo jungler is he just ganks a lot. He has a lot of action, a lot of spit. Well, the problem is if you're using the word tempo elsewhere in the next sentence, it means something totally different. Because as you say, most people use tempo to mean like, right, well, at this point in time, we have a window where we can be the ones who make a play at this point, you know, like some shit like that. Same with priority. If you say this lane has priority, right, if someone knows that that means that actually they're the ones that can move first when they roam out of after farming up, that's very different from the word priority. Priority just sounds like before the game, we just decided ourselves we're going to make this lane our priority. Like that would actually totally skew how you thought of what you were seeing on the screen. So I agree. That's like a really tough area because as I say, the real problem with it is all you can do as someone who's like a thinker in the space is have these conversations. If you're someone who's like Kelsey, write an article, hopefully, maybe it gets to some people. But unfortunately, the part where you have the great conversation and then something happens in between and then all of a sudden everyone uses that term, that part's the part that's really hard. Like no one really knows what's supposed to be done in that part. It could be an article, it could be a show. Sometimes it's just coincidental. People just pick up a term and you never know when something's going to get popular.
Duncan, can we start closing out?
Because I definitely think, by the way, because I definitely think like early mid late's probably the most egregious example. Because, dude, in an old school game,
terrible.
30 minutes was the mid game. Like to me, mid game starts at about. I mean, it's not really a time thing, literally, but you know, you think roughly of how most games go. 25 to 30 minutes was the mid game. That was where a lot of it was taking place. But in the modern day, the mid game is probably like 15 to 20 minutes. It's way earlier in the game.
Yeah, so
and it's probably just dictated based on your items, right?
I'll let you know how I sort of think about it because I think it's a little bit different. I don't think we're not talking about the time of the game. We're talking about the actual game state. So for me, there's not like early, mid, late anymore. If you want to talk about scaling, it's all about itemization and like champion scaling in their kit. And in that case, you can talk about like, you want to hit like 3 items on an 80 carry or something like that, as opposed to, I want to get this 80 carry to the late game. You know, like I think that's how you describe that. But for me, you have like the laning phase, which is when you have like top jungle, mid lane, 2 people in bottom lane. And then like once
the Herald
breaks down,
phase.
you have Herald phase, or I call it like rotation phase as soon as bot lane like leaves and actual lane assignments break down. And then you sort of have like this lull state. But when you're just trying to like kill all the outer towers, basically, and there's no like major objectives to play for, and then you have Baron phase.
Yeah,
and once you have Baron phase, then you have end game. End game is once like with one team fight win, the game ends, right? And it has nothing to do with time on the game. It's just literally the game state. And I think it's a much more like I don't want to say it's a much more fluid way to describe the game because it's not based on timing at all. It's literally just what is being played and not trying to like box teams into be like, you're a late game team. It's like, no, this team is like actually has like a weak rotation phase. Let's say for Splice, you know, they're not very good at like knocking down those towers, and, like accelerating the game, or they can't like execute in a Baron phase early on. They have to wait till much later. And that's why their games go so late. And we never have to like describe teams as like very like binary, but like 1, 2, 3. You know, you have 3 options of a team that you can play in. That's like super narrow.
I think
Sure.
those
By the
3
way,
events are
just so everyone's clear, when he says lol state, he means the English word lol, like there's a lull in the action, nothing happening. He doesn't mean a lol state like when Team Liquid played G2 in that MSI final. It was like, oh, they're fucking styling, like it wasn't that, you know, just so everyone's clear.
I agree.
What you say, Loco?
I agree 100% with Ender. Like the
What you say, Loco?
new early game is the beginning of the game until first turret falls or Herald, because after that happens, like the game changes completely. People stop laning, like people are just moving around the map trying to get into winning matchups, trying to get mid control, and then like mid game goes all the way until a team gets Baron. Once a team gets Baron, like that team has full control, or once a team has full control of Baron, like that team has a hold on the game, and once that Baron gets down, like the game starts ending really, really quickly. So I think those are like the 3 distinct phases. Like early game is like up to Herald and turret, and then there's mid game all the way up until Baron, and then after Baron it's just late game.
I'd also say, just as an aside, and again, as a layman, so I could be incorrect on this one, but I also feel like an area in which a lot of the like talk about scaling and late game doesn't apply at all to modern League of Legends is in old school League of Legends. I've seen games where people just give up a fucking billion dragons and barons, but the key point is they really did have like the god tier scaling comp, and they were farming successfully. So they knew, like, listen, eventually, once everyone gets 6 items, like at this point in time, actually, we can win this fucking game. Even though at every other point, we've given up all these advantages, we can lose the game. As long as we survive to here, we win. I don't even think that exists in current League of Legends. Like, you try giving up all the barons and dragons, it's over anywhere. Forget the fucking concept like you're scaling. Like, you're scaling for nothing at this point in time, mate. You may as well be rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're never going to get to that imaginary scaling point. And the problem in the modern day is at some point they can make you fight for that baron or dragon. Well, I don't think that was as prevalent in the old days.
Well, there was no Elder Dragon, and also Team Baron used to just give flat stats, and it wouldn't buff minions, so you couldn't do the 3-way push anymore. And also, like, there were certain champions, once you got to a certain point, like, you could wave clear infinitely. Like, you had infinite mana, and you had infinite wave clear, so Riot killed a lot of that. And also, teams overall...
This was too good.
And also...
It was so good they had to nerf the whole game.
He was extremely good at that style, and I do think Froggen was one of the best turtle-style players, because it would come down to team fight, because people wouldn't be able to split push. And also, teams just got so much better about ending the game. Like, back then, like, teams would be so shitty at ending the game. If you're just good at team fight, and if you're just good at late game, like, you could just drag the game on. But nowadays, like, once teams get a lead, like, they're so good about closing out, and they know the actions that needs to be taken.
Yeah, there's too many snowball mechanics in the game now, right? With, like, turret plating, Rift Herald, Baron, as you said. I also think, like, we talk about, like, scaling is dead. I feel like, to a large extent, like, true split push comps are pretty dead as well, where, like, 20 minutes on the clock, Baron spawns, like, you are going to be dragged into a team fight.
Because of engages. Because when engages are too strong, like, you can't split push. Like, you can't just, your guys, like, wait for me. No, they're just going to fucking open up. And if we give them too much space, then they get too much control of the Baron. And now we have to face check, and now it's even more scary. So, like, there's, like, a certain timer that ticks down. If they get this much control on Baron, we're absolutely fucked. So we have to fight before they get control. Not before they start hitting Baron, but before they get control of Baron.
Exactly. I would give the analogy like this, by the way, because the problem with this is people are going to think that, depending on which you agree with, whether you think it's or not, like, is that good or is it bad? It's like, it's not either. That's the point I want to make as a closing point. Is the problem I have is this: the actual games to watch have way more fights, and in that sense are definitely more aesthetically pleasing, and they are more, on like a basic emotional level, exciting. I would absolutely admit that. So on one level, I like it in some ways. I think it makes it way more, like, for example, I think that's one of the reasons, personally, in my opinion, why the Western teams have a way better chance to win now, and in fact might indeed go on to win Worlds. But the downside for me is I think it has taken certain elements of strategy out of the game. And so I think it's a trade-off whenever you do that. I would just give the analogy again to sports. In almost every sport, they have ruined the defensive rules in American sports because they want scoring to go. Because
touchdowns
are
fun. Touchdowns are money.
But this way, the Super Bowl that happened last year is the sort of Super Bowl they never want to ever happen in the NFL. They don't want a game where one touchdown gets scored and it's a defensive game. Even though, if you enjoy the defensive side of the game, that's actually a fucking very compelling type of a match to watch. There's all sorts of little chessboard matches going on and substitutions and stuff. The problem is, that doesn't fit everyone. So I would say for general population, I think the current game is probably its best state ever. For me, I kind of like, I'd want a little bit more of the compromise taken out. It's like, I don't mind some of the strengths in the game, but I would also like it if there was like more strategic diversity a bit,
I mean, the ideal state, right, is that you can play like any like myriad.
Yeah, that's the dream
of strateties, and they're
which is
all,
tough
like,
to do, to be fair.
Viable. I mean, I'd go as far to say it's basically
probably impossible.
Yeah. But I think that to sort of go back to like losing the depth of strategy, or like the old style of like choking you out and playing like perfect League of Legends. I think we've just sort of like, it shifted to a very different skill set, right? Because before it was much more about like having the right plan and the systems in place to like close out games off of like very small advantages. And it used to be that you would like the old Korean style was always to play for like the small wins, right? You would play for tower, play for like mini waves, play to deny enemy jungle camps, like all of these things that would slowly build up until like, and like push like deep vision further and further and further until like there wasn't like the gap was too big to actually come back. It felt like Whereas now it's very rarely about like small victories mean almost nothing in the current game. It's about being able to like think on the fly and make these fast-paced decisions that are better than your opponents. And it's usually around like showing up with more members to a fight, getting the right flanks, and it all comes down to like performing better in skirmishes as opposed to like the full court press style where you slowly suffocate your opponents.
Sure. Should we leave it on that, Loco? Here's the thing, actually. I've got one last walk-off for you. I'm not going to have one for every episode, mate. I've got one last walk-up for you, right? So this one's going to go like this. I noticed at the moment that Riot hasn't yet, unless I'm mistaken, actually released the list of all the talent who works at Worlds this year. They haven't done the broadcasters. So, for example, no one knows. Will Papa Smithy make a final appearance? No one knows right now. It's all up in the air. So I guess, Loco, when that's released, we'll finally find out how serious Riot was about nerfing World Ender. See what I did there? Right? We'll see. That's the walk-off for you.
Dude, Duncan, you were a fucking legend this episode, and Ender, you fucking killed it too. Holy shit. I didn't, like, you come off so goofy in your cast, but you came off super fucking intelligent on the show.
Thanks.
All right. Cheers. See ya.
Like,
to be fair, it's like super. No, it's because it's super. I know it is, but it's super early in the morning for Loco. You have to remember. He is in Korea at the moment. But I will say, I even thought when he did it earlier, he goes, "You're also different. Like you're really cringy, and so's Vidius." And that, like, I was going, "Where's the compliments? Like, throw something in there for fuck's sake. That can't be all that. That's just what that defines him. Like." Cringy. Why is there a picture of Ender here? Like what?
That was it. I appeared intelligent on your show. There you go.
No, okay, so in my defense, I've been up since 6 a.m. because I had to take a meeting.
Don't worry about it.
I had to take a meeting, and then it's 4 a.m. right now. And also, it used my other strong reason. If it was an A, I would have done better. But anyways, you guys fucking carried this episode. Later, guys.
All right, cheers, mate. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you so much to our gold Patreons, About Pounder 420, Tobias Bernasconi, Icelandic Free Knife Fan, and Texas Beans Ho Ho Ho. Without you guys, this episode wasn't possible. Thanks to our Silver, Bronze, Iron, thanks to our Twitch Prime subs, and thanks to everyone that watched on YouTube. Holy fucking shit, I am dying. I need to go back home and I need to sleep. I have another early meeting tomorrow. I really make a lot of sacrifices to make sure this episode can happen, and just like Listen Loco can go on even when like I'm working in Korea, and I hope you guys appreciate it, because I definitely like appreciate like Doran showing up, like Ender showing up, even though like my setup's a little ghetto right now. Thank you guys so much.